Someone make it make sense.
I'll be a couple.
Hello, welcome back, everybody who is here joining us for the latest Out of Idaho with Brian Koberger. Meg says her portal was broken. Looks like you made it over here safely, though. Hopefully, our other school friends will be joining us. We do have lots of fun stuff in store. I mentioned I've got a special surprise for you guys. There's probably more than one surprise, honestly, but there's one thing in particular that I've been referencing that I did, but this is not it. That's going to be probably next. We're starting with this. This is an interview, y'all, with Chad talking about his stupid books. You guys ready? Oh my God, it's gonna be amazing.
Welcome to Turning the Page. I'm host Donnie Morse of Confetti Antiques and Books. In today's program, we are very excited to have with us author Chad Daybell and a good friend of mine as well, Ryan Nelson, who has read Chad's books and has quite a bit to say about them. Chad, welcome to the program. Ryan, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Chad, I know you have written many, many books. To get started, why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got started writing, where that all came from? What was your motivation originally to start writing?
Okay, I started as a reporter and editor at the Standard Examiner after I'd graduated from BYU in journalism, where I'd served as the city editor. And while I was in Ogden, I kept getting ideas to write a novel, but when you're an editor 8 hours a day, you kind of get burned out and don't want to go home and write. So I'd actually worked at the Springville Cemetery during college, and so the opportunity came for me to take over as the cemetery sexton there, and I took that job in 1995. And as I worked there, suddenly the ideas came more, and I had an idea come for an entire trilogy.
I mean, it's crazy, right? Like the last dude on the planet you would ever think could ever be considered by anybody's stretch of the imagination to be charismatic or whatever. But more on that in a moment.
You had a little more dead time while you were there.
Exactly. Yeah. It's amazing what you can think about when you're weed eating and digging graves. And I wrote what's called the trilogy and came up with some characters. They're all based on family members. They're the stories set right there in Springville and Spanish Fork, and so that went really well. I actually got quite a bit of publicity and
positive response from readers.
Yes.
Who published that for you?
Cedar Fort.
Okay.
And
right
based here in Springville.
Okay.
And I got to work with Lee Nelson. He's actually the one that signed
the book. What do you all think it smells like inside this antique store?
Book and encouraged me a great deal. And Lee's writing style inspired me, and that's the way I write, is directly, not really flowery, just kind of tell a good story. I guess it's my newspaper background that is why I write the way I do.
Newspaper background.
But at a certain point,
being on newspapers or what?
Lee and the owner of the company, Lyle, asked if I would take over as their managing editor. And so I joined Cedar Fort, where I continued to write books. I moved into more of a nonfiction area for a while. I wrote the Tiny Talk series with my wife, Tammy, for primary children, and then the Aaronic Priesthood, Youth of Zion. And so that went really well. And then at one point, I felt I should write a book about my cemetery experiences called One Foot in the Grave.
We got
really well.
Oh, there we go.
We've got a copy here, One Foot in the Grave. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, when I was the cemetery sexton, I would keep a journal every day. And there were just a lot of curious experiences that would happen that once I retired from the cemetery, I compiled into this book. And it's actually the favorite book of a lot of people that read my books.
Can you tell us one story from the book?
Sure. One that definitely sticks in people's mind involves a man named Eddie. He was a kind of a homeless man in Springville. I won't give his last name because people might know him. he was buried right next to my office. And about 4 days after his burial, I think he stuck around because I started having locks picked here and there. We had a lock on our compound where we'd keep the backhoe, and I would check it every night.
Backhoe.
But once Eddie had passed away, and it started.
Apparently, these little stories he stole from other people, by the way. Sure, that doesn't surprise anybody.
Opening every night. And then another lock on a shed nearby, he had actually unlocked and hung about 2 feet above the door. And I knew it was Eddie. It just had to be.
Had to be.
And I kind of told him it's time to go.
It had to be you. Literally, Meg, I was just thinking the same thing. Or like, do you want your hoe back? Like, just there's a lot of potential with that for sure.
Go to the light, Eddie. And he gave one last ditch effort, I guess. The next morning, I found the garbage can shoved in front of my door.
Yeah.
The locks were all opened again. And finally, I just was quite stern with him and said, go to the light. It's time to move on. And that.
What? Why would he listen to you?
That stopped the lock picking. So
it's a lot of little stories like that of incidents you had there at the cemetery.
Mainly aimed at their humorous stories.
Because clearly he has a sense of humor.
And they're not offensive, but Robert Kirby of the Salt Lake Tribune read it and really enjoyed it and gave it a good review. And my own stake president, I've written all these LDS books, but this is his favorite book of the ones I've written.
Well, that's weird. Instead of you saying it, you should have them write one of the, like on books, like how they do, where somebody writes a thing and they're like, this is my favorite book. Do you not have that? Like, do you not have anybody actually making a statement that you could put on your book that's like saying anything nice about it? Anyway.
So
I've actually not seen this before, and I will definitely have to pick that up and read it. I really enjoy local history and tidbits of stories about our communities here. So that'll be one for me. One Foot in the Grave by Chad Daybell that I would love to.
How is this an alternate art edition, I guess?
pick up. So tell us a little bit more after that. What did you end up doing?
Okay, I worked for Cedar Fort for 3 years as their managing editor. And then I came to a point where I felt I should start my own publishing company. And that's when Spring Creek Books was formed. Mm-hmm. And we operated out of Provo, and we signed a lot of great authors, had a lot of success.
Really grew rather quickly.
Yes.
I mean, just literally almost overnight, you guys went from not even existing to just being one of the main players all of a sudden.
Right. We won the Small Wholesaler of the Year award in 2005 and 2006 at the LDS Booksellers Convention. And soon we had about 30 authors and had some really big sellers, a lot of nonfiction books. A lady named Trina Boyce wrote several books for us that were help books for the LDS Church, and those sold really well.
Okay.
And then I met a lady named Susanne Freeman, who...
So apparently that's who he stole a lot of his stories from.
She had had a near-death experience in 1999, and she met one of our authors at a book signing, and she felt impressed to tell her story. She'd kind of kept it to herself, but she had died and met the Savior and gone beyond the veil, and then had some experiences there and came back. And then this author, Shirley Ballman, I think she's been here in the store, Shirley, and she called me up and says, you really need to meet this lady. And I was a little skeptical. I had a couple other people, I think, try to fool me and exaggerate their stories. So I went down to Sanpete County, where Susanne lived, and interviewed her. And
now, as a newspaper editor, you knew how to do that. You knew how to interview somebody to really come at them from a couple different angles to see if they were, like you say, exaggerating or flowering up the story, so to speak.
Because I have read a lot of books about near-death experiences, and also doctrinally, I wanted to make sure she was on track. And I found out she grew up dyslexic. She had never really read any books. She's just a wonderful stay-at-home mother with 8 children. And but when she was there on the other side of the veil, the Savior told her that she needed to someday write her story. So this was 7 years later. And after I had cross-examined her enough, I felt confident about it. And that's when we put together first her book called Led by the Hand of Christ, which is more focused on her experiences in the spirit world. But then after that book came out, she says, I didn't really tell everything because it kind of scares me, but I went to the Savior showed me a window that showed future.
How is it that he says cross-examined there?
Events.
Oh, really?
And so,
well, Chad, let's stop right there
sure.
for a moment. Let's go to commercial break. When we come back, we'll talk more about Susanne and her story and how that led into you writing your series, Standing in Holy.
Are they on a real channel? The commercials? Like this seems like public access or whatever.
Holy Places, a 5-volume series about the last days. I'm Donnie Morse of Confetti Antiques and Books, and this is Turning the Page. We'll be right back.
Confetti Antiques and Books.
Welcome back to Turning the Page. I'm host Donnie Morris of Confetti Antiques and Books, and we have with us here today Chad Daybell, author, and Ryan Nelson, an avid reader who has read Chad's series, Standing in Holy Places, and we're going to get and talk to him a little bit about his experiences reading the book. But first, let's go back to Susanne Freeman. You were talking about her experiences that she was writing about, or she needed to write, or can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. So once I met with her in Ephraim and we discussed her story and I felt good about it, we moved forward and she wrote the text, but she's not much of a writer, so Shirley Bowman, an author, helped her compile that and put it together, and we published it and it went really well. And then I felt
what was the title of that again?
Through the Window of Life.
Through the Window of Life.
And the reason is because the Savior showed her future events.
Yeah, his biggest fan, that poor dude. God.
Window.
Can you imagine when Chad Daybell is your favorite author?
In the spirit world. And she felt she could actually went into the window and took part in some of these events.
So when you say future events, you're saying like in her life or like world events?
Right.
World events that she took part in. Sometimes she was actually participating. Other times she saw more of a panorama. And it's just an amazing story that it follows along really closely with like LDS church doctrine and that kind of. Absolutely. She's a very faithful LDS woman. And like I say, I felt good about it because it stayed right on course with the LDS doctrine, even though Susanne wasn't much of a scholar herself. And so that verified to me that it was accurate and had actually happened.
He stole her shit and he's like, she's not much of a scholar. Wow.
I see.
So she's not on death row or in prison.
Her name's Susanne Freeman. Her book, Through the Window of Life. We really recommend the public pick up a copy of that if you're at all interested in near-death experiences or in the last days. Now, her book directly influenced you in your series, Standing in Holy Places.
Absolutely. I feel inspiration to take the characters from my first series, the Emma trilogy, that I'd written nearly a decade earlier, and take them and put them into a futuristic scene written in third person. So I took 3 families, the Norse, the Daltons, and the Browns, and they're all just your average LDS.
Always says that like we're supposed to know who those people are.
Families here in Utah County.
Yeah, I said one's even Spanish Forkian.
Yeah, the Browns were living in Spanish Fork as the story starts. The other 2 were living in Springville, and it just takes them forward. It's based on my own families.
Your own experiences. That's how you have to write that way. That's so you've taken your experiences and incorporated it into her story, into the last days.
Right. And so as I started it in 2006, I felt that 2013, 2014 would be an optimal time. I never named dates in the series, but that's kind of what I was thinking as I began the series. There were earthquakes and things. And then
did you have any tsunamis?
There's a few in there.
Okay.
Yeah. And then it just
did you have any storms? Ew.
Begins to evolve. There's been prophecies that the saints will gather to the mountains, and these families do, but some characters don't want to.
How awkward. This dude's just like watching Chad's back. What's on that couch? What's going on with that couch? The couch looks like it's melting.
tried to make it as realistic as possible. The settings are right here in town, and people will recognize the buildings and the streets.
Now, the five volume set, over a what time span is it like a 10-year span or a 5-year span?
About 20
years.
The first 2 volumes cover 2 or 3 years. Then the third one kind of is a bridge for 10 to 20 years.
Okay.
With lots of events. And then the last 2 take place the last 3 years before the second coming of the Savior.
Okay.
So I think readers will feel that it could be their own family or even themselves, and kind of gives a good timeline of what will happen in the future. I think there's some great nonfiction books out there that tell about the prophecies that will take place, but not very many people read them. And I actually wrote this for my own relatives and friends. For example, a lot of you might know my Uncle Lanny Daybell. He was the state brand inspector.
Maybe you guys know Lanny? Uncle Lanny?
Everybody in Spanish Fork knows him. After the cemetery, they say, you must be related to Lanny.
Cemetery. Now you're the Spanish Fork sexton.
That's right.
So you've gone from Springville to, you've upgraded to Spanish Fork now.
To the promised land.
Okay, that's good. We like that. So you found yourself here in the promised land now.
Mm-hmm.
So how did you get from Spring Creek Books to Spanish Fork Sexton?
Okay. I am actually still the president of Spring Creek Books. But when the economy went in the tank in 2008, we had to drastically reduce our company to a part-time operation.
Oh, I see.
And
so Spring Creek Books still there.
Y'all, this has been driving me crazy. So that box right behind Chad's head, it's got a little price tag. You can see it dangling. I don't know what's in that box, what you got in that box, you know, like the song. And I don't know what it's made out of, but how much do you think they're charging? Well, like, what do you think? What number is on that tag? Remember, this interview is in 2011. So in 2011, how much do you think they were charging for that box?
You published
And is there anything in the box?
Volume 5 of Spring Creek Books.
And we still publish.
But you're not doing your distribution now?
Right. We've changed that to a distributor, Brigham Distributing, which has worked out very well for us. But so suddenly I needed a job to pay the benefits for the family and everything. And Hank Moore, who had been a great cemetery sexton here in Spanish Fork for 33 years, decided it was finally time to retire. And the timing was just right. I applied and was able to get the job. And so
I wonder what qualifications you have to have to do this. I applied and got the job, and it was like, yay, I got the job. Like what? I don't.
So that's my full-time job, and we do Spring Creek Books on the side at night. So
do you have another One Foot in the Grave Volume 2 coming out from Spanish Fork?
I think there will be a really good volume soon.
Well, that's good. Standing in Holy Places, 5-volume series. Let's go to Ryan for a moment here. Ryan, you're an avid reader. Tell us a little bit about your impressions of the Standing in Holy Places series.
Oh, great. Now we're going to hear from the fan. Holy shit.
Enjoyed it. I mean, in short,
Ryan, the avid reader. Oh, boy.
Well, that's good. Standing in Holy Places, 5-volume series. Let's go to Ryan for a moment here. Ryan, you're an avid reader. Tell us a little bit about your impressions of the Standing in Holy Places series.
Wow.
I enjoyed it. I mean, in short, I enjoyed Standing in Holy Places.
Oh, God.
I specifically liked the Browns character, and I liked the stories in Guatemala. I got that right, Guatemala.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I enjoyed their development and how the Browns interact with each other. That they were my favorite characters in the book.
Anyway, I'm going to go with $28 for the box.
Tad, not so much.
Yeah.
And is that the Daltons? That's not the Daltons. Yeah, the Daltons. I was, but the Browns, I really
He had a character in his book named Tad. You've got to be kidding.
enjoyed. And
Tad goes bad, so hopefully that's what he
Wow, that's interesting.
well, and I enjoyed that.
Tad's the one, just so the people understand, there's in book 1, the chip comes out. Everybody needs to get the chip. And Tad kind of gives in.
Yes, he doesn't, I guess you wouldn't call it a sin, but he does follow what the government wants him to do. And gets the chip,
gets the money, goes for the lucre, and ends up hurting
Lucre.
himself and his family in the process. I too liked Tad only because I felt that I could see myself having that same struggle. You know, but I also like the Browns were more.
This is crazy.
That's who I hoped I could be.
right?
Well, the stories with the Guatemalan saints, I thought were pretty. I thought that was really interesting, and I
Well, my biggest takeaway so far from this is that he really liked the Guatemalan part of the book.
enjoyed that. I enjoyed that part of it. I don't know what book. It's probably in book 2 or book. I can't remember what book it's in, but I enjoyed that aspect of the series.
Right. Yeah. The Browns go to Guatemala to serve as a mission president and then to become a general authority, and they lead the Guatemalans to New Jerusalem. I can paraphrase each book really quickly if you'd like.
Sure.
No!
The Great Gathering covers from that 2013 era up until the saints have been gathered to the mountains, and then the United States is invaded. The Celestial City, Volume 2, covers from when they leave the mountains to when they travel to Missouri to establish New Jerusalem. And the third volume is the one that covers a greater period of time where New Jerusalem is built, the 10 tribes return, and the New Jerusalem temple is completed. The fourth volume, The Keys of the Kingdom, begins about 3 years before the second coming.
Doesn't that look like a mosque?
And that's where you...
Oh, Meg gifted 20 memberships. That is insanity. That is insanity. I mean, that is craziness. I would totally I'm sure that was an accident, but thank you. That is so generous. And hopefully now we're going to have so many new squirrel friends that are going to be here for trivia tomorrow night. That is awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Meet some other characters, some evil villains who will conquer the world.
Welcome
But
back.
the Browns and the Daltons and the Norths are all still actively involved in that. The Browns play a key role in helping preserve Jerusalem. And then the final volume, which just came out,
You're so special.
covers those last 4 months before the second coming and actually stretches into the millennium. And so it ties it all together, makes it people who live today can understand what it's going to be like.
Well, let me tell you what I really enjoyed about the series. I think, like you said before, you wrote it for your family, for people who are not going to pick up a nonfiction book of prophecy and get into it, and they're going to read 2 pages and put it down because it just goes right over the top of their head. This series really puts
Meg?
it says, well,
Meg, is this another one? How is that even possible? That has to be an accident. Is your account being hacked? I don't know that there's anything I can do to reverse it. I know I remember there's been a time where Runkle, somebody did it on accident, and he was like, I don't even know that I can anyway, but hopefully you're okay.
well, is that true? Is that an event that I better study about that. I better learn more about that. You know, all these things you just said about, the saints gathering in the mountains. There's prophecy saying that. And a lot of folks just don't know that that's even there.
Right.
Or about, New Jerusalem. We hear about that, but what does that really mean? And so this gives an opportunity to take at least your side of it, your vision of it, along with Susanne Freeman's near-death experience visions, to build a story around a possible solution to those prophecies.
It's just possible. It's fiction, but it certainly makes you think. I have a neighbor who's been very supportive of the series, and he's a millionaire. And he read the series, and he talked with his wife and said, would we really leave all of this if the prophet called us to do so? And his wife immediately said, yes, we would. And he was like, I don't know. But it's changed his thinking, even when it comes to food storage and all kinds of aspects of the gospel.
I also enjoyed parts of local, I'd say local legend, but local stories that are kind of intertwined with it. I enjoyed the story, and I can't think of the character's name off the top of my head, but when they went up to Uinta Mountains and they found that gold. I enjoyed
Nephi gold.
Exactly.
Wait, did he say Nephi? There's that's a nice brewery there, craft beer and whatnot. I mean, I don't drink beer, but I know that brewery.
I can't think of the character's name off the top of my head, but when they went up to Uinta Mountains and they found that gold.
Right.
I enjoyed
Nephi gold.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Nephi. Wow. This is, I mean, LDS. It's like very much an LDS thing. Very much an LDS thing. By the way, Meg, you get to pick. I was gonna have everybody vote, but you're gonna get to pick. You're gonna pick what we watch next. Here's what we got. Well, we got a lot of things, but I've got 2 things that are queued up that I'm especially excited about. One is Nate Eaton interviewing Julie Rowe. I've actually not even seen that. The other one is Chad's speech from the Preparing a People conference the day that he and Lori met. So pick your poison.
Exactly.
I enjoyed that aspect of it because we live here, the Dream Mind. I grew up with stories like that my grandma and grandpa used to tell me different stories.
Yeah, I have an uncle who's an avid gold hunter, and he kind of inspired that. But there is a character in that.
Of course, we all know who Nephi is. Someone not know who Nephi is? Everyone knows who Nephi is, right? Twiz is going to sleep? What? It's like 7:30 there. Never mind.
Third book, The Rise of Zion, is based on a man my dad knows that worked at Geneva who's actually experienced that story. I'm not going to give it away.
Yeah, we don't want to go there, but it really is. So, Chad, we want to thank you for being here today with us. Ryan, we want to thank you as well. Chad will be here at Confetti Antiques and Books, 273 North Main, April 30th from 10 to 2 to sign copies of his books. We'll have as many as are still in print available, including the 5-volume series, Standing in Holy Places. Be here April 30th to meet Chad.
Oh, my God. So Twiz has been sleeping all day, but he wants to sleep more. Yeah, of course they can help. Sure. Yeah. All right. So
thanks again for being with us.
All right. So again, we've got options. We got Julie Rowe, Nate Eaton interviewing Julie Rowe, who that'll be really interesting, I will say. And then we have Chad's speech from the Preparing a People. Now that speech is a big deal. It's been referenced in the different trials and all the trials. I don't think it exists anywhere on YouTube except for one specific place, but they have it ruined with like music and shit. I have it. I had to do work to get this to happen, guys. I was able to remove all of the music, and so that it's literally just the actual speech. The options. Okay, so here I'll show you guys. We'll give a visual. I mean, I've got more options than this, but these 2 I'm especially figured you guys would be most excited about. So the first one. So Julie Rowe, former confidant of Chad and Tammy. I mean, Julie Rowe, y'all know who Julie Rowe is, right? I mean, my God. She's even more nuts in some ways than Chad and Lori. I mean, she hasn't killed anybody yet, but like yeah. I have also this, well, I have this one too, like the secret phone recording of Lori and Chad. This was not played in the trials, this was at the grand jury, but also this is the one I had to do a lot to get here. So this is Chad's speech the day he met Lori, from October 26, 2018, Preparing the People, his speech when she was like enthralled by him. So I have this. This is the one that it was like a big deal to be able to do. So, that's funny. You thought you were tuning into another Twin Flame sesh? So the pic of him at the cemetery, that's just because I had to pick a picture, right? I had the audio and I picked the picture, so literally there's no video. There's no video that exists of the speech, by the way. It's just the audio. Somebody in the audience was recording it with like something, right? So I made it simple where I didn't want to have to like have video that could be like, basically I wanted it to speak for itself. So the picture stays the same the whole time. It's literally just the audio of the speech. And that way it is what it is. That is so true. So there's that. I mean, I've got more stuff, right? But like, that's just, let me see what else I've got over here. If you guys want more options, we've got a bunch of Melanie Gibb related things here. There's tons of Melanie Gibb. We've got Christina Atwood, Jason Mao, Lori and Chad's jail phone call the day before the bodies were found. I mean, it just goes on and on. Chad calling the funeral home after Charles's death, tons of stuff. And so we're not going to do it all tonight. Some of it's going to be tomorrow, before we get to closing arguments. So, okay, Chad won. All right, so we're going to go with this then. Cool. All right. All right, here it is. This is remember, guys, this is when he wooed her over with his charisma and his sense of humor. And look, he's reading his own book. Can't go wrong there.
So here we are in St. George. I'm happy to be in St. George.
Cool.
I grew up in Utah County, and this was kind of our getaway place, our paradise, if you'll call that, and hike around. I played a lot of baseball down here in the Sunshine Tournament. Would practice up in Springville in March.
One of the questions is going to be, so in 2011, we just watched his interview of 2011, right? This is 7 years later. Is there a difference in his ability to talk?
Fingers cracking and frozen, and then would come down here and play. So it was always a great time. I'm third from the right there on the back row. You can see me very well, but loved baseball. And like I say, played a lot here in the Sunshine Tournaments. So when my family decided to move from Springville about 3 years ago to Rexburg, people thought we were crazy. But I think if we had moved to St. George, no one would have argued. They would have just said, hey, yeah, I don't blame you.
You're all laughing.
And just amazed at the growth that's taken place in just the past few years. Yeah, here's a picture from last year. No, just kidding. But that's about how steep the snow is sometimes in Rexburg. Last fall, it's still fall. We had a really heavy snowstorm, and my wife had bought me one of the Fitbits and told me to wear it. And I got out the snowblower, and it just kept snowing and snowing. And I ended up with 20,000 steps on my Fitbit from just the snow blowing. So it's helped thin me down a little. So,
what is he talking about?
For example, here's my daughter's wedding last January.
And so it sounds like he's showing the audience, I don't know what you call them, the people, this is the preppers, right? The preparing the people. He's showing pictures of like random shit. It's just very weird.
Adam's kissing her and froze to her at 14 degrees.
He's trying to be funny. And Lori apparently thought he was. It's just crazy. I literally was thinking the same thing. I was like, he was at 34 Fairview?
Cold, honestly, but as we're standing in front of the picture and getting pictures in front of the temple, I'm like, this is nuts. So my daughter Emma got married in August when it was actually hot in Rexburg, so that was a lot better. Wanted to talk.
It's slightly more engaging. Okay, slightly more. In other words, there's a little bit, at least more change in inflection versus the previous interview, I would say. The other one was like, oh my God, like I can't even imitate it because I'm just way too expressive of a talker. But anyway, he seems like he's improved a little bit, maybe, but the stories are still lame, but he's doing a better job of selling them, maybe. I mean, people are kind of laughing. Ugh.
A little bit about my ties to this area. My grandpa, Guy Chestnut, grew up in what was known as Fuda. Just a few miles off. It's now known as Capitol Reef National Park.
Guy Chestnut, is that Lanny's brother?
And there's a little schoolhouse there that Grandpa Guy attended. And so we'd come down, and since he grew up right at the base
is why his middle name is Guy.
of these cliffs, he knew where a lot of the Native American artifacts were. They were still there. And he'd take us up in these canyons, and I could feel a real spiritual sense, almost like the Native American ancestors are still there.
I think they are probably offended by you saying that.
And
I would be.
We've gone back since, and the government's fenced it off and taken away all the remains of the artifacts and things. But that really was a spiritual experience for me. If you do happen to go to that little school, they have a recording, and they tell the story of a boy who put a snake in the teacher's desk. And she tells the story. That was my grandpa Guy. So a little bit of a prankster, always was. I wanted to begin with a story I haven't really told much. It's in my autobiography. But when I was 13,
his autobiography.
definitely in need of braces in that picture.
All right, guys, y'all. This is Chad Daybell telling a story from his autobiography from when he was 13. Oh boy.
Got them later. Our deacon's quorum advisor encouraged us to read the Book of Mormon, and I'd never hardly cracked the book open. Sunday we were playing our football in the yard and things like that. But so I did that summer before school. I read through the Book of Mormon and got to Moroni chapter 10 and saw the promise, and our teacher talked about the promise, and I didn't really get an answer right off the bat. I put myself through a lot of trouble. I'd go out in the field in the rain, you have to sacrifice or something. I'd go kneel down in the mud and pray, and nothing would happen. Go out in the pigeon pen and pray and things like that. Just nothing really came. Finally, a voice said, just go write in your journal. And so I did. And as I began to write, the Spirit just filled my heart. And that was undeniable. I started crying, and I still have that record. I'm glad I got to write in my journal as that was occurring, because I wrote, I'm feeling the Spirit right now. And, I could not deny the Book of Mormon. I knew that it was true, and that Joseph Smith was a prophet.
It'll be interesting to see if it sounds like he's getting emotional, like crying. You know what I mean?
So when you reach 18 years old and your doubts start coming about a mission, like they always do, the opposition, I always had that experience to fall back on. And so people think, oh, he's seen visions, and that really isn't the basis of my testimony. It's the fact that the Holy Ghost testified to me. So I talk to people who sometimes think, oh, I'm just not measuring up. But if you've had this Holy Ghost experience testify to you, you're on the right path, and you'll be led to the way you should go. I compare those of us that have visions to, sadly, kind of like to Laman and Lemuel. They had an angel appear to them, but it still didn't change their way. They needed to have the testimony of the Holy Ghost to strengthen them and to know that Jesus is the Christ. But I did when I was 17. There's teeth were a little straighter by now. I'll just briefly tell about my near-death experiences. I've told them enough that I don't need a whole lot of details.
With anything?
But for those who haven't heard, I went on a youth activity to Flaming Gorge, Utah, in northern Utah. And my friends loved to talk me into doing stupid things. I was the younger priest in the quorum, and they knew they could usually goad me into something that I shouldn't do. And they loved to cliff jump. We didn't dive, but this certain cliff.
Oh, the cliff jumping. I've heard about this. Where did I hear about this? This story of his is like, okay, when people were talking about his bullshit stories, like, again, he stole these from other people, but also like this story that, like, I don't remember what it is about the story. Something about the story is like, A, it's like he's stolen from someone else. But B, there's things about this that like literally don't make any type of sense. And they refer to it as like the cliff jumping story. So this is that story. All right.
Levels, and we slowly worked our way up, and finally we got to one that was about 60 feet high. This is not me, but this is about where we were at Flaming Gorge. On this photo, and they told me to go first. And as I stood on the edge of that cliff, I was like, "This is a terrible idea," but gotta impress my peers. So I took that jump, and it just took forever to hit the water. Just 1, 2, 3, and just kind of flailing. And when I hit, it was like hitting concrete. And it just felt like I broke my neck, honestly. That was my first indication. But what really happened is my body went deeper than my spirit. And so I was like 3/4 out of my body. It's like I came out through my head. And
okay. Great.
I looked around and it was like a plane of white light and just an amazing experience. I felt so peaceful and calm, and there were little particles of light that attached to my body like they were just rushing at me. But within a few seconds, my body and spirit went back together. I later learned it wasn't the best fit. For 30 years, I was kind of off. So I went to a chiropractor and he fixed me, and it felt a lot better since then. So, but a few years later, we went on a family vacation to La Jolla, California. This La Jolla Cove. And in the center of the picture there, you can kind of see some black rocks that go out. And my brother and I went out on the very tip of that at low tide. And as the tide started to shift, as we were looking for shells and things, a gigantic wave came and just plastered me. This is the same cove, a different angle, but that's about what that wave looked like. I was out on that tip and then just looked up, and there was this wave right there. They just call it a rogue wave. It comes out of nowhere and smashed me, and I was sure I was going to die.
I'm wondering, does he not really know how to swim? That could explain a lot of this, like his troubles with being in the water. Weird.
And I was actually right.
The rogue wave. Lord.
Suddenly I got hit by the wave, but then I was just standing up to found myself just upright. I was a spirit. I was in an orange room, and well, not an orange room, but it was just an orange glow around me. And suddenly I saw my grandpa Keith Daybell, who was my father's dad. He was in an army uniform, kind of a symbol of who he was. And he had with him his grandfather, Finity Daybell. And as Grandpa Keith talked to me, Finity was watching my body. It was floating around in the water, just kind of bouncing around, actually. And so I felt they were kind of, maybe they had a certain amount of time they could talk to me. And Grandpa Keith started telling me that in the future, I would write books based on my children's future.
Oh, God.
And he showed me like a panorama that just flipped through dozens of scenes, like a video wall, just showing me dozens of scenes of what happened to my children. And it was a great blessing. I soon returned to my body and kind of coasted to shore. My dad rushed to me and they took me to the hospital. And I had to get some stitches and everything, but I bounced back. And a few years later, I started writing that series. And so that's how the Standing in Holy Places series began. It follows three families, and I've kind of combined a couple of the children, but it really is the story of what will
Are we going to get to hear more about Tad?
occur to my children in a general sense, not every detail. But the main character is named Emma, and that's my daughter, my oldest daughter.
Person hot tub was sick.
And it's just, at the time when I wrote it, I'd worked at a publishing company and we'd done a couple of near-death books. And Deseret Book had rejected them and just kind of had some controversy about them. And so I felt inspired that it should be written fictionally and just not tell anybody that it's based on truth and just put it out there. And it sold really well. And so we did a couple follow-ups. The Great Gathering starts right.
He's already hinting at being deceptive. Hold on. Some kind of controversy.
Deseret Book had rejected him and just kind of had some controversy about him. And so I felt inspired that it should be written fictionally and just not tell anybody that it's based on truth and just put it out there.
Huh.
And it sold really well. And so we did a couple follow-ups. The Great Gathering starts right as there's an earthquake in Utah, Salt Lake Valley. And you follow some of the families go to the camp, some of them don't. And you see the outcome of that.
An interesting take, right? So sometimes you might have things where it's like being marketed as truth when it's based on, not truth, whatever, it's made up, it's fiction, right? Being marketed as nonfiction when it's fiction or whatever. But here he's saying the opposite. He's like, yeah, I'm going to market it as nonfiction. I'm going to market it as, whatever, but it's based on truth. It's like the opposite of what? It's an interesting. Like, you can see how that type of thinking could become dangerous in the gaslighting arena, if that makes sense.
And so they gather to the camps. The follow-up book talks about when they go to the final battle ends in World War III, and they go to build the Celestial City. This is actually a photo along the Missouri River. It looks like Switzerland or something, but by the end of the book, they actually get to Missouri. The third book talks about building up Zion and the great meeting at Adam and various other things, such as the return of the 10 tribes. I felt I was shown a lot of that. I think one of my sons will be involved in that, so I was able to see how they are brought to New Jerusalem. The fourth book deals with Jerusalem itself quite a bit, with the two apostles that go to Jerusalem and help protect it, and then just other things that are occurring as Zion grows in America. And the fifth book talks about the second coming and the renewed earth, and that had a lot of interesting insights as I wrote those books. That's where I received a lot of my visions, if you want to call it. As I'm actually typing, it's like they're downloading the scenes into my head. And so people ask me, how much is true? I always say, you ought to do a version where you just yellow highlight the parts that are actually true. And then just, but it would be hard to do because even within the same paragraph, there's a lot of truth. And as I progressed, it seemed like the visions increased. And so by the time I got to Renewed Earth, I felt pretty confident that at least the general major scenes that I was describing are going to occur. And I hope that that series testifies of Christ and that he is in control. That part about the second coming and the burning of the earth was a new concept to me, but I believe that the righteous will be resurrected and then they will join Christ in coming to earth, and their very glory will be what burns the earth as it transitions to a terrestrial level. And so I just felt very good about that series. I thought, wow, that was a 6-year project. I'll just rest on my laurels. And I did for about 3 days. And the Lord said, well, thanks for doing that series. Let's start another one. So this series, The Times of Turmoil, goes back to that first book, The Great Gathering. The Standing in Holy Places series, as I said, goes from now to the second coming. And even as I was writing The Great Gathering, my dad says, he's my editor, he's like, man, you sure rushed that. Why didn't you slow down? But I always knew that it had to be 5 books. And I just told him, I think I'll someday fill in a little more details. There were details I didn't even know at that time when I first wrote it. So as I started the Times of Turmoil series, then those added details came to me. And so as we talk about the yellow highlighter part, this series truly feels like it's going to happen. I feel that these characters, Nathan and Marie, exist. This one isn't really based on my kids like the other one. Not quite sure who they are, but I feel they exist, and the other characters within this series are out there somewhere. And so this series starts right after the first earthquake, and Nathan's a return missionary, and he gets called to help as a maintenance missionary to help set up places of refuge and places of gathering in the mountains. Secretly, he was driving along the freeway with a loaded tents in the back of a truck, and no one knows. And he's headed to the mountains. Marie's a U of U student, and so obviously she's inactive.
Obviously, she's having a
But anyway, yeah,
that
Marie
joke
is
got
happy.
laughs. I have no idea what
They've
it
known each other in high
was.
school, and he had a crush on her. But he gets back from his mission and finds out she's not living the way she should. But I won't explain what happens. You'll have to read the book. But as I said, things start to occur. Well, back to Marie for a minute. She's got a dad who's kind of a prepper. You know what those are. And they try to tell her kids what's going to happen. And the kids are like, we don't know about that. And she actually shouts at him, "You've been telling me this my whole life. Nothing's ever happened. I'm going to take an internship in Chicago. Nothing ever bad is going to happen in Chicago." And so Marie goes to Chicago. So that tips off a little bit.
Remember, the way that Lori approached him after he gave his speech was she approached him and was like, "Oh, I'll help you sell your stupid books." She didn't say stupid. I said stupid. But so far, his whole speech here is literally him talking about, he's like trying to sell his books, right? He's like, here's my books. He's on the last book here. So then after that, he gets into more of the prepper stuff. But here he is talking about his books. And I guess, and then Lori's like, "I'll help you." And apparently the stories are that like he hadn't sold a single book until Lori started trotting around being a backhoe, and I think sold a couple.
Where they're headed. But then, believe it or not, things start to happen while Marie's in Chicago. There's earthquakes start to occur, volcanoes happen, and this leads to a lot of civil unrest, especially on the West Coast. People start moving. This trouble. There's a scene from my mission. No, just kidding. Served in New Jersey, Spanish speaking. That's pretty accurate. Then, once there's these troubles start, the good people in America begin to move. They just can't stay in their areas. They feel worried. Let me just turn this over. And so that's a lot of what occurs in the third book. I have Nathan's dad. I won't give the whole scenario, but it turns out he ends up helping the UN peacekeepers, the peacekeepers that come to help America. And this is a picture of Nathan. So yes, he joins the army later on. But so the third book begins in the most unlikely place for an LDS novel to begin, the Casablanca Casino, of course, in Mesquite, Nevada. But that's where Garrett is, as he and the UN forces have worked their way up from California. And
Interesting,
what
Garrett.
has happened is
Garrett was the second name they gave Charles after so he started out with Heplos, and then he was Garrett, and then he was Ned, then Garrett, then Heplos. So interesting that he's using that name here.
the Hoover Dam was cracked in an earthquake. There's some volcanic activity. Las Vegas is suddenly out of water, and hydroelectric plants aren't working the way they should, and people are panicking. They're starting to starve and be very thirsty, and they do what you'd expect them to do. They just get in their cars and drive. And out of Las Vegas, there's not too many places they can go. They're not going to go back to California where all the earthquakes are. They are going to start coming this direction. One issue, though, is that let me find my place. Okay. Well, we all love going down to Mesquite in Las Vegas, but that route through the Virgin River Gorge is going to be destroyed. You look at some of the bridges, and that's not going to hold up under a 7.0 earthquake. Some people will try to make it through the Virgin River Gorge, and it just isn't going to happen. They might make it, but most likely not. There's just going to be a lot of trouble there. So back to this, I don't know how well it will show up, but I was talking Sister Smith about Littlefield, Arizona. So they'll drive their vehicles to Mesquite, and they'll be about out of gas, a lot of them by then, but they might get all the way to Littlefield and realize the Virgin River Gorge is closed or just impassable. And so they're going to just kind of pile up in that desert area, and Littlefield will be filled with, I've seen just hundreds of thousands of people, and they are not happy, they're angry, and that's where Garrett and the UN forces going to leave Mesquite, and they come to Littlefield, try to bring a little peace to it, but they soon learn that they can't. And so a lot of people have started walking up the old Highway 91. And so these are visions I've had of where these people are going to go. And this is the little town of Ivans, but it's going to be crowded. That's where the people are going to come. We're watching this.
So he just Ivans. That's where Jody Hildebrandt was living.
And pass through Mexico and the large crowds. That's kind of what we're going to see happening as they congregate in Littlefield, and then they realize that there is a route around. And so I just think it's going to be really unorganized, and people are going to start traveling this direction and coming around the bend and coming through Santa Clara, and they'll finally reach St. George. We've talked about St. George as a gathering place, but there's some details I'm going to share that help explain what it means. They will spot that beautiful white temple, and it will draw them to downtown St. George, but it won't be like we have the yellow shirted helping hands just standing there waiting for them on this occasion. What's going to happen right before that, under the direction of the church, and probably even, I just feel that many of you in this room are going to take part in this. So, sir. This was of a real estate site, but it happens to show a lot of the places you're going to gather. So, Tokerville, Oregon, Hurricane, Virgin, Rockville, and Springdale, right there along that ridge, are going to be places of refuge where the saints will go ahead of time. Another key place will be Pine Valley, that region. There's an old, it's an old pioneer church that they still use there. And that will become sort of a headquarters where the leaders of this area will congregate and organize. There's a lot of good campgrounds up there. But back to this picture. So downtown St. George is where these refugees are going to come. And I was amazed as I drove in just how much has been built in the last 5 years. Because, in 2014, 2015, we were like, it's coming, we're going to have an earthquake, everything's going to fall into place. But I can see how the slight delay, if you want to call it that, has allowed great growth here that will actually house refugees, and that it is part of the Lord's plan that this area is developed and be able to accommodate these people. They might not have electricity or a lot of food, but they'll be able to have shelter and be safe. Because I feel that the majority of people that actually make it this far from California and Nevada are good-hearted people that have their purpose in life is to join the church and to make it here. Just wanted to mention a couple other camps. This is a Pine Valley camp. Camp Kolob is one where people gather. and just up in the pines, a really safe area. But I wanted to talk about my fourth book. This is the last book in this series. When I first started the Times of Turmoil series, I thought it would just go on endlessly. Didn't really have an end point. But as I was writing it, at the end of this book, World War III ends, and the Spirit told me, this is the end of a time of turmoils, times of turmoil. And so that is why the series ends there. And then it kind of picks up and things improve as we build New Jerusalem. This book was strange because I finished the third book, Days of Fury, 3 years ago. And I had this cover ready 2 years ago. But the Spirit just kept telling me, you need to hold off. It's not time to tell this story yet. And so I just held off. I was told there would be a shaking before I released this book. And me being dumb, well, that must mean the first earthquake. So I'll just wait until the first earthquake. I even put that on my website, a couple other websites. But as I listened to the April General Conference with President Nelson just moseying up there every 2 hours and announcing something else, I realized that was the shaking that I had been told to wait for. And so I actually wrote this book in 2 months. It just really flowed. Once again, the visions came to me of what would occur. And I write in the BYU Idaho Library, and from that library, I can look out the window and see the BYU Idaho Conference Center, which is a key part of my series that most members don't know about. Raise your hand if you've ever heard of the BYU Idaho Conference Center. Is it because you read the books? Okay. But it's a very, we have the Salt Lake Conference Center with gardens on the roof and waterfalls. This just looks like another building. But what they did was they actually blasted into this gigantic volcanic rock. It's immense, and they just went as deep as they could. And so the building itself isn't very tall, but it's essentially a replica of the Salt Lake Conference Center. It's a little smaller. It's not quite as wide, but yeah, it's a powerful, immense
It's inadequate to me.
building. And unlike the Salt Lake Conference Center, it has the added addition of 10 basketball courts attached to it. So just a magnificent building that's tucked away that they haven't really talked about much. But when Elder Bednar dedicated it, he said several spiritual visions and prophecies about that building that I've included in the books. That it will, I know that someday after the second earthquake happens in Salt Lake, little Rexburg will become the headquarters of the church temporarily as the war ends and we begin to move to New Jerusalem. So we won't be packing up our wagons from Salt Lake. We'll just Rexburg will be the center. And I actually, in my book Celestial City, I guess I wrote that. I did not realize that until I started this series. I went back and looked, and there it says Rexburg is the headquarters of the church. So it amazes me how sometimes the books even parallel each other. But two key new people in this new book is Jen Gardner and her daughter Amber, and that's who's on the cover here. And I truly believe they live in Washington State right now with their husband and father. And life's good for them. They're Christians. They're not LDS at all. But this is another case where I believe they are there. And they are going to be affected by volcanoes and earthquakes. And they will leave Washington. They'll get on the freeway with everyone else, but they'll get to a town in Montana. And the husband will be killed by a gang. And Jen and Amber will escape
Sure, you won't be killed by
and
you.
hide out through the winter, luckily in a cabin. I've seen the cabin. I'm tempted to just go for a drive and see if we can find it. But then that following spring, they'll begin walking down I-15 into Idaho. And so Rexburg and St. George are almost parallel north-south of what's going to happen. They'll be gathering places for millions of people that are destitute and scared. And it will be our job to comfort them and help them and assure them that everything is going to be okay. And I know that you'll be fully capable, no matter where you live. Mesa, same situation. But yeah, St. George and Rexburg are kind of, it's almost like a balanced scale how I see it. It's they're going to save millions of souls that way.
Right.
Another key part of reclaiming liberty does involve what I call the elders of Israel. Joseph Smith prophesied about the elders of Israel. So when the Third World War starts,
Oh boy.
for the most part, the saints will just stay in their places of refuge, will be hidden away. The Lord will protect us, have shields over the camps, just literal invisibility, if you want to say that. But back to that BYU Idaho Conference Center, those 10 basketball courts, it's a huge room, 10 basketball courts, not a single pole or anything. But that is where the elders of Israel will train during that winter, that hard winter.
Oh, God.
And they'll be ready to roll by spring, because what will happen, the invaders, I call them the coalition. It's just a collection of Russians and Chinese and other countries that have invaded our country. They will feel fairly almost overconfident. They will have taken over every place but the Rocky Mountains, but miraculously there's a really hard winter that kind of keeps them out of I've even seen snow here that's at least 4 feet deep, to just show how hard that.
I'm sorry, but if you think 4 feet of snow is going to keep Russians away from anywhere, then you're even more delusional than I thought you were.
Winter is. And so the coalition army just basically settles in for the winter. They feel fully confident that they'll just wipe everyone out in the Rocky Mountains when spring comes. But the Lord sends additional plagues, and so that coalition army will be quite depleted and fairly weak that coming spring. And meanwhile, the Lord will have prepared many soldiers to help win the war. I love what Jason Mao is doing. We did a presentation in July in Mesa, and another case where Spirit was almost overwhelming of the mission he has. That parallel will happen again, where training will happen in Rexburg, but somewhere here, there will be training, and I feel strongly Jason will be a part of that training and help to have that army ready to go as well. So I don't know if you're going to do water training like this. I don't know what you got in mind, but what will happen that when that spring thaw comes, the coalition leadership will have gathered in Denver. That Denver airport is honestly kind of their headquarters that's been prepared. And I've seen Obama there. I've seen Hillary Clinton there. They're not going away. Whether they get reelected or they just continue their parallel shadow government, I don't know. But they are part of the coalition, and that's really what they tried to do the previous 8 years before Trump was elected. And I do believe President Trump, it was a miracle that he became president. Otherwise, we would probably be headed right into these tribulations by this point. But I do believe the timeline can shift. The Lord allows that to happen. The opposition can affect it, but the Lord gives us mercy and helps us that way. at the time of in October 2016, my brother's kind of a doubter, and he pulled me aside and he says, "Is Trump going to win?" And I said, "No, I don't think so. I look at the Electoral College, I look at everything, and there's just mathematically no way that Donald Trump's going to be the president." And I told him that, and a month later he doubted me no more. So, but it's all right. So this training is going to go on, and what will happen is all of these groups there'll be St. George, Rexburg, Manti. I think what will happen is this group will travel from St. George, the Elders of Israel, to Manti, merge with them, because I've seen that as kind of a bigger group. And then they will.
How many of y'all had Trump on your bingo card? This is from 2018. This is 2018.
Wyoming. It's almost a historically symbolic meeting place where the saints have had their army.
Nice,
They had to battle Johnson's army in 1859. But at that point, the leaders will come together. The coalition army will have gathered into Denver, where their leaders are, and just preparing to wipe out anybody who's left in the Rocky Mountains or capture them. But that's when our young elders of Israel will
Young elders?
emerge from the Rocky Mountains.
Oh.
And take care.
Oh. Okay. Remember, guys, when I was like, I wonder if he's going to get emotional and we're going to be able to hear that he's crying or fake crying. Here it is.
But that's when our young elders of Israel will emerge from the Rocky Mountains.
Oh my God.
And take care of the coalition and
wow.
Be a spiritual powerhouse. And when that war, people say, well, when they read my books, it's like, well, that wrapped up really quick. But in reality, that's what's going to happen. They will be so strong and prepared that the coalition forces that remain will not have any way to stop them. And we'll also have spiritual warriors on the other side. So I see them as modern day sons of Helaman.
Oh God.
I met a lot of them. They know their mission. They sense it. And that's why they're on earth at this time. And they will preserve the liberty of this country and help us be able to build Zion. Wow. So we worry a lot about missionary work right now, but in reality, it's just going to explode. The people that are living here, once the war is over, the Californians, the Nevadans, and all those, they'll just look at our examples and they'll just be like this woman and be so happy.
Oh.
And we'll be stronger than ever. We have the myth that we'll all travel to New Jerusalem, but that's not the case. As I heard President Nelson announce Washington, Utah, it hit me, wow, that new temple will be the center of a city of light. Same thing's kind of in Rexburg, where you have the Rexburg temple and you have Rexburg, but there's a smaller town called Ashton, about 25 miles north, and that's where their temple will be, and that will be their city of light. And I hadn't been here for 5 years or so, but as I came off the freeway, there was 2 locations.
Oh my God.
Man, yesterday, the Spirit was just so powerful.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Wow.
It's like I could see the tent cities.
Wow.
And we really don't understand how wonderful it's going to be and the difference we're going to make in people's lives. So.
What's the deal with the tents? Why aren't they like in houses? Why tents?
You will be a part of that. Here's an example of just a mix of people, just every nationality, race will be here, and they'll work in harmony. This is a painting by Carrie Guthrie. I love it. Symbolizes a city of light. And we are going to build structures that you won't believe. I believe the 10 tribes have great gifts that we don't understand. In Spencer's book, Visions of Glory, he talks about how they can just
Oh, Visions of Glory. There it is. Oh, boy. Oh, wow.
mold rock. They can take a tree and tell it to be a chair or something like that, and the tree will obey. And so as the 10 tribes return with these gifts, we will build these cities quickly and magnificent.
Then why are you in the fucking tent? Oh, my God. Turn that tent into a tiny waterfall, am I right?
In my book, Living on the Edge of Heaven, it's an autobiography. I tell a few more of my experiences that I won't tell today. But I wanted to just testify that I know President Nelson has been preserved for this time. I'm not sure why, but during President Monson's time, as he grew older and didn't speak as much, that's kind of when I felt that I should publish a lot of books, Hector's book, Julie Rowe's books. We had our season almost where we helped people prepare. A lot of people rejected that message, but those that accepted it are going to be the leaders as we move forward. And now President Nelson, as he begins this change in the church, those that are prepared and awake just latch right on. And I want you to know that's where I'm at. I'm just latching on.
So he said awake. Speaking of which, so Julie Rowe, her, Preparing a People's, I think now defunct, but Julie Rowe still lives on, and her thing is now the Wasatch Wakeup. So the awake thing. It's interesting.
Trying to hold on to that 94-year-old coattail. and Elder Oaks and Elder Eyring, of course. I don't know if many of you know, but Elder Eyring's son, Henry J. Eyring, is the president of BYU Idaho. And I don't tell us, well, I guess I tell it every time, but I have a good group of friends in Rexburg that are like the head of the IT department, head of the food and services department, and we just have little lunches together. And we tell each other what's going on up there. I'm a lucky guest.
Little lunches, like not a whole delicious lunch. Is that what I'm hearing? Little lunches? A distinction there.
I ate a lunch, like I had a whole delicious lunch.
To listen to them. They like to tell me stuff, so it's not. But there's so much going on there that it's just not a rumor that that's where the headquarters of the church will be. It's a fact, and it's marvelous to see how it's coming together. But I want you to not just believe my words. Each one of you has a special mission, and you need to pray and find out. And I know that the Lord will tell you, going back to where I started as a 14-year-old, you don't need to have a vision to know what you're going to do. You just need to have the Holy Ghost testify to you of what you are meant to do and as a part of this great work. And I just want to let you know that I know this. The church is true. This whole work is true. Every aspect of it is very important. These wonderful speakers that are going to share their piece of the puzzle today. And I hope you just absorb it. It's all so wonderful. I wanted to just talk a little bit about Mike and my new little series, Glimpses Through the Veil. We just both kind of had the same idea. He moved to Rexburg. And it's aimed at Christians, but it's funny, it's entertaining. Mike does a fabulous job finding some good video clips. And they're 30 to 40 minutes long. There's 10 episodes. And actually on your program, you get a half off on the back there. I think you'd really enjoy it. has the same kind of dry humor, I guess you'd say. But we've put together some really good episodes. I hope you'd consider looking into that. And as we progress, the first 5 are pretty basic, but as we go through the last 5, I actually shared quite a bit of what I've seen, and I don't say we're LDS, we avoid that, but if you've enjoyed my books, I think you'd enjoy that. And as I came down Thursday, I stayed at my parents' house, and my dad's kind of my foil. I always joke and jab at him a little bit in these episodes. So I thought, well, I better let him see what I'm doing. And so, believe it or not, he liked it. So I found a picture of Mikey. And so Mikey, I think he likes it. Like the old Life cereal commercial. So I think we're in good shape if my dad likes it. So, and then I'll be out here in the front lobby. But I wanted to tell you an exciting thing about what's happening with our company. We published this book, Lion and a Lamb, a few years ago. It's one of our bestsellers. It's by a man named Rand Packer, who's the grandson of Willard Bean, who was called on a mission with his wife, Rebecca, and Joseph F. Smith in 1910 or so. Said, Willard, just go out there to Palmyra. There weren't any Mormons left. Willard was a former boxer, and he's tough. And that's why there's a lion and a lamb. Rebecca had the soft heart. And Willard literally fought his way into society in Palmyra. He knocked out a couple preachers and things like that. So T.C. Christensen read the book and just loved it. And so they are filming it right now. And so it'll be a great new movie in the spring. It'll be called The Fighting Preacher. I guess that'll appeal to people. But by the end of his mission, Willard had befriended people. The church was starting to emerge there again, and he helped buy back the Hill Cumorah, or well, buy it. And he started the pageant there. And I think that's how the movie will end, is that first pageant in 1935. So anyway, it's a wonderful book, and I'll have copies here. It's well worth the read. And then the movie will be wonderful too. But I just want to close with my testimony of Jesus Christ, that I know he's in charge of all of this. So he's in charge of many things, but he's also loves each one of you and knows each one of you and cares what you're going to do in his kingdom.
In charge of him being on.
I hope you'll continue to grow closer to him. And I say these things humbly in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
There it is. Remember, he's also her father. That came out in another interview we listened to. He was also her father in a past life. So up next, guys, without further ado, it's time for some Julie Rowe. Let's go. This is from there it is. This interview was taped on June 5th, 2020. 4 days later, I'm just reading what's on the screen. 4 days later, the bodies of JJ and Tylee were found buried on Chad's property. So this video didn't come out until I think a year ago, but it was taped on June 5th, 2020, obviously. All right. All righty. This is going to be really interesting.
Could you just say and spell your name?
Yeah. Julie Rowe, Julierowe.
And how would you describe your relationship with Chad? Former friend, current friend, business acquaintance?
Former friend and business acquaintance. He was my publisher.
So why are you here today, Julie?
Because part of my mission that I agreed to premortally before I came to Earth,
oh boy,
was to warn and testify of a lot of things, including exposing darkness on every level, layer, realm, and dimension.
Oh boy.
And I see darkness in this story. Very hard to talk about. So I appreciate the time you're giving.
Yeah, I love Nate.
And I hope people understand that this emotion is because I care deeply about the people involved in it. Everyone from Chad and his family Lori and her family, even though I never met Lori, and all the parties involved, including millions of people who have been exposed to this energy as a result of all the news that's gone out on it. It's affected millions of people on both sides of the veil. And I made premortal covenants to testify of truth at all costs and to let people know that what has happened with Chad and Lori is not okay.
For those not familiar with the words premortal, you mean before this life on
Before
Earth.
this life, we lived in spirit realm.
Right.
I have memory of it. I had a near-death experience in 2004.
God.
It's one of several that I've had. And that's how I know Chad. He published my first 5 books.
Yeah, talk about how you met Chad and Tammy. Did you seek them out because you had this
No.
experience? How did that work?
No. So I was shown in dream and vision, and during my near-death experience, I was told in 2004, I was on the other side of the veil for 2.5 days. I was essentially in a comatose state.
So you were dead.
I was not dead. I was still alive, but I was asleep. According to the hospital records, I was in a comatose
What happened?
state. My heart was still beating.
Were you in an accident? Or?
No, I was later diagnosed with Lyme disease and Epstein-Barr, but I didn't have doctor's confirmation on that for 8 years.
Oh, wow.
So just very, very sick.
Very sick in the hospital.
Mhm.
Your spirit left your body.
Yeah.
And you were in the spirit world.
Yeah, for 2.5 days.
And that's what happened there.
Well, maybe I should refer people to my book, New Revolution, where I talk about it. You can go to Amazon. It's called New Revolution. But basically, I was given a tour of different parts of heaven and spirit realms and different worlds or degrees of glory, if you will. And
Visions of glory.
was shown some of my past lives as well as things in my current life that had happened when I was younger. Had a life review. They took me through what we call the window of heaven, that's how I had access to some of these portals and things like that.
God.
And then they reminded me of some of the promises I made to my friends and family, including spirit family, that I would help prepare them for some of the things coming to the earth, including war in the United States.
Okay. So you came back, your spirit came back.
Right.
And then you met Chad, or?
Yeah. So I didn't meet Chad and Tammy until the summer of 2014. Chad first contacted me in February of 2014. I was on the Vallow website. I really only got on the dreams and vision part. I had a friend that was my Relief Society president when I was in the hospital as a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I was living in Overland Park, Kansas, and her brother-in-law happened to be my home teacher as well. So their family played an integral part in helping me and my family when I got really sick. And she was only one of a few people that knew that I had had this near-death experience for a long time. And when I came back and I started to wake up and work through what had happened to me and the trauma and all that, I started opening up to her more and told her about the dreams that I'd had, the night visions, the memories I had of what they'd shown me. And, I would cry to her about, some of the heartache that I saw coming to the world. And so that was in 2004 in September. And then I had another near-death experience a month later in October. And so she knew about that. And she told me about a vow. I think it was probably in 2006 or 2007. And I got on under my own name because I'd never been on an online forum. And then I posted just a few things, but I quickly realized that.
Do you remember what the question was? Like, objection non-responsive?
To be in my own name would not be good because of how people treat you online. And so I quit posting. And then several years later, in 2013, I was prompted again to sign up again. There's a long break there where I wasn't on there at all. Mm-hmm. And I never really looked at anything else on there. I knew it was like a prepper site where you could find things about solar and Dutch oven cooking and stuff,
Food storage.
Yeah. And because of what I saw coming, I've always been into food storage because I was raised that way in the church and my family, but I'm not like an extreme prepper, right? I don't consider myself a prepper.
I only have 500 tents.
In fact, that term bugs me because I think it's like too extreme. But because I was feeling very lonely about what I was experiencing, it was nice to read other people's dreams.
Does anyone else remember this? I recall hearing from one of the other people who used to be in this group that homegirl here, Julie Rowe, was like had her own brand of tents, prepper tents, that she was selling for like an arm and a leg. And like people were like spending their life savings on these stupid tents, and like they were like Julie Rowe brand tents. Does anyone remember?
And visions who had been shown similar things, and I had additional witnesses. And so this friend of mine, knew that, and she gave me a couple of books as well, Sarah Monet's book and some other books, of people that had had experiences, and that really helped me early on. So then in 2013, so when I had my near-death experience, I was told that I was to share my story through a book and speaking publicly in about what they said 9 Earth years. And I was laughing at the 9 Earth years because my husband's like, if you say 9 Earth years, you sound like a weirdo. And
somebody married her. I did not know that. That's crazy.
I said, well, that's what they said to me because there's a lot of other planets in the galaxy, and this is planet Earth. And they said planet Earth. And so I then was told in October of 2013, I had a severe adversarial attack. That's just kind of what I experienced since I woke up from my near-death experience. A lot of very, for me, it's very physical. In fact, last night, because of this interview,
oh my God,
I was up half the night just being physically attacked, very physical.
Like physically, like
yes.
by things you see? Or?
By demons and unclean spirits, yes.
And they're attacking you.
I can this interview and
sometimes see them. Usually I feel them, and they'll choke me, sit on me, squeeze me, punch me. Yeah.
There will be people that hear that and think you're crazy.
Yes, they will, but people already think I'm crazy, so they can think what they want.
Yeah. So, and I'm not discounting your experience at all. There will be people watching that saying, how does that happen to her and nobody else?
Right. It does happen to other people. They just don't talk about it.
Okay. Yeah. So you have your near-death experience. Chad reaches out to you through the AVAL website when you get back on.
In February of 14.
How do you know it happens to other people if they don't talk about it? Anyway.
February of 2014, and says, we should write a book together?
Right. Well, in October 14, I had this attack, and I was actually at a restaurant, and I'd been having dreams about the books again, and the spirit had been telling me it's coming soon. And I would ask, in my mind as I talked to the Lord, well, when? Because it's been about 9 years. And they just said, sometime after the first of the year, he will contact you. You don't need to worry about it. I wasn't given his name. I could just see him in my mind's eye.
Chad.
And I was told, you'll know, and he'll find.
I just have to say something. It is driving me crazy. Her hair in the back. It's just driving me crazy, and it's driving me crazy that I hadn't said anything about it yet. I mean, I'm just saying like it's just driving me, please, can we just fix that?
Find you. Don't worry about it. So I didn't ever do anything to try to publish my book or anything. But when I had this, that had been going on for a couple of days. When I had this attack, I was at a restaurant, and I went into the restroom because it got so severe. I was just trying to get away from the group that I was with so I could kind of work through the energy that was happening. And I ended up very, very sick, throwing up in the restroom, and it got worse. And I ended up basically collapsing on the floor of the restroom bathroom. And that's when I heard very clearly, have no fear. And I said, why does this keep happening to me? And what I heard was an audible voice that said, don't ask why, ask what, and ask how. What are you to learn, and how are you to serve? And at that moment, I said that in my thoughts, and I felt this swishing energy, and I felt this light come in. Okay. And
did someone open the bathroom door?
Demon or whoever it was that had me around the neck, I felt it release, and I had some interesting visuals about light warriors that came in, and there was basically a battle going on right there. In that bathroom.
Between light and dark.
Yes. Yeah. And with the gifts that I had
in the bathroom anyway,
because of my veil being thin, I don't see everything, but often they will show me quite a bit, and it's pretty sci-fi. It's pretty crazy stuff. The veil really is a blessing for people. So anyway, that's the background. So I knew it was coming. I just didn't know when. And then he private messaged me. I was prompted to post more about my dreams and visions, and started posting about my near death. And then he found me, and in February he messaged me, private message, and said, "I'm an author and publisher. Would you be interested in doing a book?" And I saw his picture, and he looked different than what I had in my mind's eye. They showed me like a different look because his picture was earlier. So actually he looked like what I saw when I met him in the summer of 2014.
Mm-hmm.
But I wrote my first book in 6 weeks. So we started it in March. I gave him the first draft in 3 weeks. I went to Grand Canyon with my family for spring break for 5 days. He did initial edits, and it went to press 3 weeks later after that. And so it went to press in April of 14 and came out early to mid-May of 14. I didn't meet Tammy and their kids and Chad in person until July of 14.
So later
in
that summer.
Provo, because they were living in Springville. I met them in Provo.
What was Chad like? What was his family like?
Very nice. Socially introverts, all of them. Very, very kind of quiet people. The contrast in energy was kind of crazy because my kids and I, and my husband we're pretty talkative, loud people, you know? So our family cultures were like opposite.
Very interesting.
I would say honestly, they're socially awkward, but really nice people. Really, really nice people.
Wow.
And from what I understand, your first book did pretty well.
Yeah, I'm not sure how many copies we sold.
Obviously,
thousands.
Enough to write more.
Yeah, I had my second book that went to press. So on that trip where I met them in person, after my book went to press, it had only been out a month. And one of my guardian angels, well, basically I say the Lord, but really, sometimes it's the Lord's voice himself, and sometimes he sends messengers like through my guardian angels or ministering angels.
Like a carrier.
And I remember my book had been out 3 weeks, and I had told everyone I'm only doing one book because that's all they told me, and I didn't want to. I had no desire to write anymore. And after I did a radio show on Mills Crenshaw and told everybody that, literally the next day I got a message from the other side of the veil, and they're like, "Hey, there's another book." And I was like, "Are you kidding me?" And so I took a lot of flack for that because I told everybody I'm only doing one book, and then I said, "Oh, I have another one,"
Yeah.
So people are like, "Oh, she just wants to be famous." I'm like, no. See, this is how it goes with communication. They only tell you what you need to know when you need to know it to get to the next level of your progression or your place in your plan or to help or whatever. And I wouldn't have been open to it anyway, right? And so then I opened my heart and I was like, "Okay, Lord, if you want me to do another one, I will." And that book came out October 15th. It took me 8 weeks to write.
That same year.
The same year.
And you worked with Chad on that one.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how many books did you write with him?
Well, I did I have to add them up again. I
Sure.
think it's 5. A Greater Tomorrow, The Time Is Now, From Tragedy to Death.
You have to add them up again by saying the names. She's only saying the names because she wants people to go buy them. Which is hilarious. She thinks this interview is going to make people want to buy these books. Wow.
Destiny. My biography, which was Rising Above the Flames. And then we did podcast books. And we started to transcribe the podcast on Julie Rowe Show. And we got one of those out. Chad didn't have the
forgot about that, the Julie Rowe Show. Jesus Christ.
Funding. We'd only sold, maybe 1,000 of them. And we just decided it wasn't worth putting them in print. We just did the ebooks on them.
What happened with your relationship with Chad?
So
give us this Cliff Notes.
It was a gradual drifting apart. We finished publishing my book in the summer of 2017. And then we did the podcast book shortly after that. It was kind of going on simultaneously. And we didn't have any more books. And
podcast book. I just don't understand what that even means.
I had been shown in vision and told at that time that the actual title of my biography that would come out and go more worldwide, or at least in the United States, was going to be
more worldwide, or at least in the United States, so not worldwide.
A different title. It was called Gifted for a Purpose, and Chad turned that title down. Actually, Eric Smith came up with that title, and I was told very clearly, this is the book, this is the title, and there are certain things in it. Chad wouldn't include certain things in the biography. They always did the design covers, but the first 2 books I saw in vision, and then he found the pictures on the internet and presented them to me, and I said, yeah, that's it. So there were some really good experiences on a spiritual level with him. With Rising Above the Flames, I didn't have the experience. He saw it in vision, he picked it out. Tammy designed it, presented it to me, and I really didn't care for it. It's got this big eye on it, but the spirit said, this is what it's supposed to be right now. Just let this go out. And then later on, I had envisioned what the other title of the book would be and the other cover.
This reminds me a bit of Jeff, as in Jeff of Twin Flames, sitting down with the Vanity Fair journalist, trying to quote unquote interview her, thinking that it was going to be like good advertising for them. I'm getting a lot of overlap here in a lot of different ways, where like he's not even asking questions, she's just talking. Again, she clearly seems to think that like this is going to be good publicity and good press for her, which is interesting.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
And so I always knew like this isn't the real biography, but it took a year and a half to write that. Eric Smith helped write it. Eric's the one that does the podcast with me on Julie Rush and Eyes Open. So I don't know where I'm going with
So
that.
you worked with Tammy. I mean,
She's like, I lost myself. I think that she and Eric are still working together.
Eric Smith helped write it. Eric's the one that does the podcast with me on Julie Rush and Eyes Open. So I don't know where I'm going with
so
that.
you worked with Tammy. I mean, if she was designing it,
Yeah.
and did you have a good relationship with her?
Oh, Tammy and I were great friends. Yeah, I wasn't as close to her as I was Chad, because Chad worked on the writing side with me and the editing. I only talked to Tammy on the phone maybe half a dozen times. And we would text here and there, but again, she's an introvert. She doesn't text her. I was chalked up to that. She was pretty shy. When I came to Springville, because they moved to Rexburg in 2015.
Now, maybe she just didn't like you. Possible.
And Chad called me up right after he had the vision of moving to Rexburg. I know that whole story and how that all happened. And I can vouch that how he wrote it in his book is what he told me before he told anybody else.
What did he tell you? He
It doesn't mean that it's real, though.
called you one day and said,
he was still in Idaho with their family vacation and called me, and he said, I was just at the gas station and I got this visual, and I heard, on the other side of the bell that I'd be moving to Rexburg soon. And I was like, really? I said, so how's Tammy going to feel about that? And he goes, well, she's not going to like it. I mean, they're both from Springville, Utah, born and raised. They met in Springville. They fell in love in Springville, and he was pretty confident that in time, when it was right, the spirit would work upon her heart. And if they were supposed to move, they would move. And that is what happened. She struggled with it. But I talked personally to Tammy about it, and she had her own witness from the spirit. She wasn't just doing what Chad said when they went to Idaho.
she felt that it was right to go too.
Oh, yeah.
No,
She was very in tune. She didn't have the same gifts that Chad had.
that actually came up, I believe, in Chad's trial, and that's absolutely not the case at all. That was a whole thing. Did you guys remember that? It was really sad how much Tammy didn't think this was the right idea. Anyway.
But she has one of the best hearts of anybody I ever met, and very, very, very kind. Very genuine, not a fake person.
What would you say Chad's gifts are? Being a visionary?
He's visionary. He has some gift of hearing. And he, I know he's going to watch this. He's not going to like that I say this, and he's probably saying,
He was sleeping with Lori while he was still very much married to Tammy.
very genuine.
I backed it up because whatever she's going to say, she said Chad's not going to like it. So therefore, I'm like, oh, awesome.
Not a fake person.
What would you say Chad's gifts are? Being a visionary?
He's visionary. He has some gift of hearing. And he, I know he's going to watch this. He's not going to like that I say this, and he's probably saying out there. Truthfully, as I got to know him, I realized that I had more gifts, that mine were more.
This is great for a number of reasons. Chad's never going to be able to see this. I mean, but also this is amazing. This part's amazing though.
I know he's going to watch this. He's not going to like that I say this, and he's probably saying out there. Truthfully, as I got to know him, I realized that I had more gifts, that mine were more expansive, that my gift of hearing was sharper.
You mean gift of hearing the spirit?
Yes, gift of
Okay.
hearing the spirit. So there's different hearing gifts and sight gifts, different types of vision. Sometimes people can see it in their mind's eye. Sometimes they actually see it with their eyes. Sometimes it's more like on the
You
crown
mean
of the
like
head.
having like actual like delusions, like you need help, you know?
It just depends on what the visionary gift is. And I have all of those. Chad, the way he described it to me was he would look down like when he was writing a manuscript, and he could kind of see it in his mind's eye, like through his third eye, is how he described
Well,
it.
that's like how people do when they write, though, dude.
Is different than how it works for me. I usually just see it,
Yeah,
and I can see
possible.
multiple dimensions.
So if he is a visionary, why didn't he foresee all of everything that's happened?
Right. I can't answer that for Chad, but I can tell how it works for me.
Did you foresee any of this?
I heard that
This is the tough one, right? Because she's supposed to know all this shit, right? I guess, and like, you know, oh my God, this is getting interesting. I mean, it's been interesting, but it's getting even more interesting because he's asking more questions.
Right. Why didn't he foresee all of everything that's happened?
Right. I can't answer that for Chad, but I can tell how it works for me.
Did you foresee any of this?
I heard that how do I explain that? I did not foresee, and I still have not seen exactly
The way you
what
explain it is no. That the answer is no, sounds like.
happened to Tammy and the kids. I'm being blocked from that. The Lord tells me that is for my protection, and that I am being unveiled more. So we're all veiled, and there's not a single visionary on the planet that sees everything, right? Because you still have a veil. Even people that have these amazing gifts that seem like,
Oh my God.
they can see, you can't. That's not how it works. You get bits and pieces. You might get a flash. You might get a scene. Every now and then it looks like a video, but there's always pieces missing. And then you, based on your own belief system, which can often be false beliefs,
Oh my God, like a false twin flame. Again, another overlap. Dude, if something ever happens to Shalia, her and Jeff, no, that's too terrifying to even think about. But I'm just saying, there's a lot of overlap that I've been picking up on. There's so much that I'm not pausing it because we would never get through this. Like, there's a lot of overlap in things here.
pieces together to make sense of what you're seeing.
Oh,
And it's the same thing with the hearing gifts, right? And you have to learn to discern, is this coming from the light side? Is this coming from the dark side? Because they can imitate. Satan has a counterfeit for everything.
Is this a way of justifying how Chad would call people light 1 second and then dark the next second? Like, this is craziness. And it sounds a lot like schizophrenia.
Pieces together to make sense of what you're seeing. And it's the same thing with the hearing gifts, right? And you have to learn to discern, is this coming from the light side? Is this coming from the dark side? Because they can imitate. Satan has a counterfeit for everything. And he has his spirits that pretend to be the Lord, or to pretend to be Joseph Smith, or pretend to be whoever, right?
That's the good thing. I can be dark right now, but like next second, I can be light again. See?
And they're very good at mimicking.
Yeah.
And after being and reigning on this planet for thousands of years, they have mastered body language, energy. They can, there's this false belief that the adversary can't read your thoughts. Well, they can read thought energy. And depending on how smart that individual is, because they have their ranks, right, of their, they have their, I guess you could call them their minions or their entry-level infantry type soldiers, and then they have their lieutenants and captains and generals.
What is she talking about?
That are more skilled at rising the ranks.
Well,
and
she's lost me now. What? Armies? What are we talking about? Twiz is just rating everybody dark. Hilarious. No other channel on YouTube is going to have a mod that literally just is rating everybody as dark. Twiz is the light.
that individual is, because they have their ranks, right, of their, they have their, I guess you could call them their minions or their entry-level infantry type soldiers, and then they have their lieutenants and captains and generals that are more skilled at rising the ranks, and they're
What
taught.
was it we made you that day? The day Twiz that you got all the power, the day you became co-host and became a mod. What was it? That was so funny. Like Twiz is Christ, and like you ended up being like king of the universe. And anyway, that was really funny.
And they're schooled just like we have on the light side with our light warriors. And so depending on who you're listening to or what your gifts are and what your belief system is or false belief, or if you have impure heart energy, which every one of us has because we live in a telestial world and we have
Celestial?
imperfect DNA that's been passed down. And there's a lot of factors there. When we have any kind of impure energy like lust or pride or ego or arrogance or vain ambition, which is, and I'm not casting stones at Chad, this is literally what the Lord's told me, that is what his downfall was.
No, please go ahead. Cast stones at Chad all you want.
That he was looking through dirty filters.
Oh.
And the adversary can implant false visions and can implant false thought energy and make you think that it's a light warrior or the Lord.
A very interesting interview. There's just so much in here that is just, I don't even know. Lusty Jezebels. Well, I haven't heard the word Jezebel, like, I don't think ever, but very biblical. I like that you're bringing in the biblical vibe here.
Is that he was looking through dirty filters. And the adversary can implant false visions and can implant false thought energy and make you think that it's a light warrior or the Lord, or sometimes you think it's actually your own voice. And it goes both ways with light or dark. Does that make sense?
Didn't you say that you had a vision that the kids were safe?
So yes.
Way to go, Nate, for bringing it back to reality in a way, as much as possible, as close to reality as she can get.
Sometimes you think it's actually your own voice, and it goes both ways with light or dark. Does that make sense?
Didn't you say that you had a vision that the kids were safe?
So yes, but I've been unveiled on some more of that.
Tell me about that.
Mother of God, this is dude. I knew this was going to be spectacular. I did not know it was going to be this spectacular. This is incredible. Really. This is incredible.
It goes both ways with light or dark. Does that make sense?
Didn't you say that you had a vision that the kids were safe?
So yes, but I've been unveiled on some more of that.
Tell me about that.
I was told the kids are safe. I saw them in a room in a house.
Lori said the kids are safe. It's not, dude. Okay.
Beautiful furniture. There was like this couch and there's like these wicker chairs, super bright, big windows. Through the window, I could see palm.
This is great because she doesn't know yet, right? Remember, this interview was, what did they say, 4 days? I mean, this is terrible, right? But this was 4 days before they found the kids buried. I mean, is she really going to say that she thinks the kids are still alive living in this weird ass environment that she's describing?
Palm trees and ferns and beautiful tropical. And then out the window, it was like a beachfront property and I could see the beach, the sand. Property. And then they showed me a scene where the kids were at the beach and Tylee was with them. And there were other adults in the room. I could sense them and feel them, but they didn't show me who they actually were. Well, then they showed me Chad and Lori in Hawaii at the beach. The room I saw was different. I would see them at a resort, and then I saw them in some other room, but I couldn't tell exactly if they're in the same room. So I made an assumption, fully admit, that I assumed they were all together. Okay. Well, it wasn't until, I don't know how long after, that 3 or 4 weeks or something after I came out with my first podcast, I said, the kids are safe and I see them in Hawaii and they're all at the beach or whatever. That then I started learning some more things. And the Spirit said, you need to like listen better. You need to, there's some other things you need to learn here.
Wow.
And
this is incredible.
Then the scene changed and I saw Chad and Lori still at the beach and mostly at the resort, but they were going.
I mean, like you saw this on the news, right? Like, are we like
places? I saw them on the island of Lanai, and I was told they were there just a couple of days. And I still saw the kids at the beach, but I never actually saw them together. And then I saw the kids in another room. And I started picking up. So at first, the emotions, because I'm an empath, on both sides of the veil, I can sense energy and the feelings and emotions of people. And I was contrasting it because Tammy for 3 weeks was overjoyed and happy. And I saw a big reunion for her with all her ancestors. And they were like so happy to have her home.
Wow.
And that was for about 3 weeks while I was seeing the kids in a good place. And Charles was in this darker dimension, and he was depressed. He was upset. He felt betrayed. He felt guilty and shame and all these negative emotions that I often see when people are in a spirit prison type situation.
A spirit prison?
And he was sitting on this old wooden chair.
Look at Nate. I will just say, this is a challenge. It would be a challenge to be Nate Eaton sitting here, listening to this and like staying professional and also trying to understand it enough to where you can ask questions and like process. It's a lot to process and like to try to distill it and then try to get it back on track. Like, I mean, yeah, right? Like, what a task though for the person questioning her. I don't envy that. I don't envy him.
Chair in a corner with no lights on. There's like a dim light coming through, and he had his hands like this and just not in a good place, and very concerned about his kids, concerned about what had happened to him, concerned about Lori, lots of negative emotion. And I would talk to Charles and try to work through it with him. And he was not ready to talk. It was like he was in a state of shock about what was going on. And he was trying to process, because we're the same people on the other side of the veil when we go in spirit realm as we are here. Well, then time goes on and Alex dies, and I see Alex, and he's in an even darker dimension, like way darker than Charles.
When are we going to get to the other planets though? Because we heard a bit about that in the beginning, and now we've just abandoned that, it seems like.
And so I'm trying to make sense of what I'm seeing in the energy as the story is unfolding, as more evidence is coming out. And the emotions I felt from Alex, when I would try to talk to Alex, like Alex wouldn't even talk to me. He was so angry and he wanted nothing to do with me. He just was so angry. And he felt betrayal, a lot of anger, some hatred, frustration, lots of shame. So I was trying to make sense of that. In the meantime,
What do you make sense
more
of
stuff's
that?
coming out. All that was starting to happen about the time you did your interview in Hawaii, where the cops found them for the first time.
Mhm.
It's about the
And that's what we just watched the other day, guys. Do you remember that? When Twiz thought they were in Arizona, and I was like, no, they're in Hawaii.
time frame. In that amount of time, things shifted like that. And in the meantime, I'm talking to the kids' spirits, and they feel abandonment, betrayal, heartache, sadness, sorrow, forlorn, all these emotions. Abandonment was coming up huge. And I would cry myself to sleep. I would talk to the Lord and I'd ask him, what do you want me to do with this information? Am I seeing this correctly? How can I help? Is there more you can tell me? And I'm asking.
But in her own words, though, if she gets a response from quote unquote the Lord, it could actually be Satan in disguise. So
these questions. And I can see, and I see this in spirit realm a lot, but I can see there are veils even in spirit realm, and there's doors and access points and gateways, and you actually have to progress into the light. Sometimes you have to have an escort that lets you in. Like if you go from like what they call spirit paradise, prison to paradise, there's actual doors and portals, and they will escort you in, or you have to have permission to come in. And people can try to sneak in, but they don't make it very far. And the light can go down to the dark. The dark dimensions can't come to the light, because just from a scientific standpoint, those energies can't.
From a scientific standpoint, you guys following this? This makes sense. It's scientific. It's just science, guys. It's just science.
Very far. And the light can go down to the dark. The dark dimensions can't come to the light, because just from a scientific standpoint, those energies can't coexist, you know? Well, the kids were then in this. It was a different room. It was a different house. And I could see one of the bedrooms. Most of the time there were no lights on. And I could see Tylee laying in a twin bed. And she was just kind of like curled up in a fetal position, crying.
Yikes.
And the lights were off. Sometimes I could see a dim light. I don't know. It looked to me like a moonlight, but I think what they were communicating was that.
Yeah, but the moonlight deep, do 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 do. Get back the moonlight. Anyway,
it looked to me like a moonlight, but I think what they were communicating was that, you know, that she was in a different place spiritually, and I'm just trying to make sense of it. Well, then JJ,
on the moon.
it went from Tylee watching JJ to some other adults watching JJ, and I could see them, and I could see a woman, but I couldn't see her face. I could just see like the outline of her spirit.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started going, wait a minute, are they in spirit realm? Did I get this
they
wrong?
were dead or alive?
At that point, I couldn't. And then the Spirit, the Lord, started to explain to me more about the veils in spirit realm and how they are veiled as well from seeing sometimes what happened on earth. And he said, Tammy was veiled for 3 weeks from what happened to her. And we unveiled her last night. And she now is able to see what's happening on earth with her kids. And with Chad, she now knows that Chad married Lori very quickly. She now knows that her kids are suffering. But the first 3 weeks, they just were like, oh, they're doing good. And she's over here having a good time reuniting with her family. And then it was time for her to shift and kind of get back to, helping with her kids. And
it sounds like as more news came out, her visions changed to incorporate the facts that disputed what her previous visions said. So
the way it's explained to me is that part of her mission now that she's on the other side is to help her kids on this side to work as a ministering angel. And then they would show her some of the news reports, because even in spirit realm, they can watch what's going on earth if they have permission, right? And Lucifer will show them his version.
Lucifer! Excellent.
Right? And the Lord will show the true version of what's going on.
Y'all
so
remember
even this
Lucifer was the name of one of the cats in, what was it, Cinderella? Like Disney's, like the cartoon Cinderella, like Lucifer was like the mean cat.
Interview, there are people from the other side of the veil watching to find out what I'm going to say, what you're going to say. And this will cause shifts in people's energy, either to encourage them to go further into the light and to get further truth, no matter where they are, whether they're on the earth or spirit realm. Does that make sense?
Yeah. One of the things Melanie Gibbs said is
how quickly he says yeah to that. And then literally he has the next question ready to go. One of the things Melanie Gibbs said, wow. Thanos says, I'm not a good chatter tonight. You're always a good look. There's no requirements. Like, you're not being graded. We love everybody here in the Scroll Crew, and we're happy that you're here. Hopefully work trip is a good thing and you like what you do for work. Dude, but Nate, though.
To go further into the light and to get further truth, no matter where they are, whether they're on the earth or spirit realm. Does that make sense?
Yeah. One of the things
We need to stop asking that question, honestly.
Melanie Gibbs said is that Chad would often, and even Lori sometimes would like predict something was going to happen or have a vision.
Yeah.
But then when it didn't, it would change.
Right.
Literally what we said just the other day, yesterday or whenever it was, when we were talking about how, I mean, that's exactly why they had the whole thing. You can be light and then you can be dark again. And then the whole thing too. Remember when we talked about killing people just to even prove that that your prophecies are real, that you're like a real special whatever prophet or whatever the fuck it is. It's like this whole thing. Like, you have to be, it's just like with twin flames changing people's genders to try to prove that they can actually find your twin flame, right? It's just the same thing. Just like Alex Murdoch going to rehab to try to prove he had a drug addiction he didn't have. Same. Anyway, I'm just so glad he's asking this question.
Because of people's agency. Couldn't you make that same argument with anybody that says they're a visionary that,
yes,
all right, the earthquake didn't happen, it's been pushed off.
Yes.
So then doesn't that somewhat invalidate the original vision?
You're going to have to actually get a penetrometer, a big enough one, and create an actual earthquake to prove themselves right.
Well, here's the thing, how it works again, they've explained to me, because I've been criticized for that very thing. More than Chad, because I'm the one that first came out with the term Wasatch Wakeup. The Lord himself gave me the term the
Wasatch Wakeup, and she's still doing this shit, man.
With the term Wasatch Wakeup.
Which is
the Lord himself gave me the term the Wasatch Wakeup years ago. So anybody on the internet or anywhere else that refers to Wasatch Wakeup, that was given to me. I coined that because I was given that. I asked earlier, there will still be a Wasatch Wakeup. The timing is what shifts, but also circumstances can because of agency, but that does not necessarily invalidate the vision. It just means you can also have false visions. Okay, so
I know you've already said that. False visions, just like, oh my God, look at this pause. Guys, I was going to pause it to say false visions, just like false twin flames. I'm going to take a screenshot of this. Is that mean of me? I don't know. What do you guys think? I just feel like I can't not, though. You know, I'm always doing this, right? Every live stream, there's some sort of funny pause or great pause or epic pause or whatever, where I'm like, I'm going to take a screenshot. Wow.
Very clear Chad was getting false visions. And maybe, you know, we can do another interview if you want some time or whatever. And I could go into why I know that, because he shared a lot with me. And that was, you go back to when we started to go the other way. Our paths diverged because of more and more of what he was sharing with me that I didn't agree with, or that I saw differently, or that I heard differently. And the Lord would say, don't tell him what you know. Just listen, serve as a witness for both sides of the veil, and flush the energy, because it's going to come full circle later. And I didn't even know what that meant. I just knew I was to continue my friendship with him, continue to work with him, and find out essentially what
Took a screenshot of it too. That is hilarious. Oh my God, we both did that. That is hilarious. Amazing.
Exactly he was involved in and what he believed. And even when I came out and said in the first interview I did on the news, where I came out so strongly and I said, listen, I know Chad Daybell, he's a friend, and he would not hurt those kids, and he would not hurt Tammy, okay? Because I could not fathom in my mind that the Chad I knew would do that. The Lord had made it very clear. I had seen a vision and was told for over a year that Chad was having an affair with Lori. He did not know I knew that. I never told him that. But I knew it, and I got confirmation when I saw the news, right? I had no proof of it. I was just going strictly on what the Lord had shown me. But to go from going, okay, I know a guy who, you know, messed up and had an affair, to killed his wife and killed some kids, like I couldn't make that leap.
Can you now?
Some kids. Wow, that is interesting, isn't it?
Guy who, you know, messed up and had an affair, to killed his wife and killed some kids, like I couldn't make that leap.
Can you now? What do you think now? What happened to Tammy and the kids?
I don't know. I just know it hurts. And I know that Tammy continues to ask me to speak whatever truth I do know. And I know that when I look at Lori and Chad's countenances, their auric layers, I can see auric colors, their entire countenance have changed.
I thought she said orc layers at first. Did anyone else hear that? Huh.
Truth I do know. And I know that when I look at Lori and Chad's countenances, their auric layers, I can see auric colors, their
Orc layers?
their entire countenance have changed.
Yeah. Copying Tolkien now.
I see hard hearts. I see gray. I see a lack of light.
I just want to clarify something. I'm not disputing of everything she's saying. The thing that rings the most true is Chad and Lori's orc layers. She's definitely onto something there. So definitely not disputing that, but she is stealing from Tolkien. So
I see hard hearts. I see gray. I see a lack of light in Chad's eyes. They're dulled over. I feel their pain, but again, when I key into the emotions and when I know what Chad has done to me on a spirit level in the last year, I don't trust him one bit. He has betrayed me and Tammy the most, and his kids, and lots of friends and acquaintances, everyone that read his books, everyone he, published. He's betrayed a lot of people. And when I have asked, and I'm not saying this, people are going to say I'm judgmental. I don't mean it like that. But when I see this and I ask sincere questions of the Lord of how did I not see this coming?
Like,
because
I
you
don't
asked,
think
could I see it
anyone's
coming?
going to take issue with you judging Chad. Like,
They prepared me. the best you can be prepared.
Cordial stick.
I had glimpses, I had insights. I did not have a lot of the big pieces to the puzzle. The day I found out Tammy died, I had a vision and I saw myself on the news. And I was told and I heard Chad's going to be accused of murdering Tammy.
I mean, she probably actually saw herself on the news. I had a vision. I saw myself. You mean you with your eyeballs? You were. I'm sure she was on the news. Really incredible.
I did not know anything about the kids, but I was told a month before she died, Chad will be accused of murdering Tammy. And the day that she died, when Emma told me that her dad said they weren't going to do an autopsy, I had a physical reaction. I felt like my heart just sunk. And the energy inside of me, I'm very sensitive energy, just went right to the pit of my stomach. And I actually got physically sick, nauseous, and almost threw up. I cried. Also because of some of the other things Emma said, because she said what she was most afraid of was that her dad was going to get remarried. And then the Lord started telling me some of the stuff Chad had said to his kids, some of the stuff he'd said to Lori.
Were they lies?
I think Chad believed them, but they are lies.
But you think he truly believes them?
I think he really does. But they are lies.
And we were talking off camera a minute ago that you haven't reached out to him because you don't feel that it's right to do that right now?
I reached out after the funeral.
Oh, you did? Okay.
The first 3 weeks, I texted him. I offered him some free sessions to help him through his grief.
Did he respond?
No acknowledgement. No.
And meanwhile,
I told him I was sorry. I waited until
3 sessions. He really need. You should have offered him an attorney.
Monday after she died because I didn't want to, on the first few days, on the day of the funeral. I had talked to him on the phone 3 weeks before that, and the Tuesday before she died, he texted me because he had told me 3 weeks before she died that he would contact me after potato harvest because Tammy was off of work. They're going to have some time together as a family, and he was going to get back to work after potato harvest. And I said, okay, that's great. I have so much to do. I work a lot. I work a lot. I'm busy with my family. And so that's what we decided is sometime after potato harvest. Well, I was out of town in Idaho and Utah for a work trip the week she died, and I had to go to San Diego. I was actually teaching a group energy class in San Diego the day she died. But I was prompted on the Tuesday before she died to send him a text. I can't remember if he texted me and see if I could talk or if he tried to call. And I never gave him my schedule, but that day I was prompted to tell him the basics. And I said, I'm in San Diego Saturday. I'll be back Sunday. I'll be in the Provo area Monday. And then I'll be flying out Wednesday because my son Ethan is coming home from his mission. And I look back on that now because the funeral was in Springville on Monday night, and I was staying 10 minutes up the road. And I never heard a word from Chad or any of the family. The day I talked to Emma, I talked to her at 1:30 Utah time, 12:30 San Diego time on the 19th. She sobbed her eyes out. I talked to her for 40 minutes. I basically gave her a session. And I had a visual of Chad right when she said, what I'm most afraid of at the end of that 40 minutes is my dad getting remarried. And I said, why is that? And she said, because he's talked to me, I know about multiple probations, and I have a problem with polygamy. I'm not okay with polygamy. And that was a huge red flag for me because I was like, okay, multiple probations is a true doctrine, but whatever he's told his kids and whatever he believes is false doctrine because it's not polygamy. And I didn't know what he was planning or what he'd been involved in, but I had visuals of him communicating with a lot of women through text or phone call. I knew for sure he'd had a relationship with Lori, but I didn't know beyond that, with other women. So it was like a really big red flag for me. And right when I started to talk to Emma about it, I had a visual of Chad, and he came over and grabbed the phone out of Emma's hand. And she hurried and said, I love you. I got to go. My dad's here. Click. And then I saw him tell all of his kids, especially Emma, do not respond to Julie Rowe's text, her emails, or her phone calls. and I've never talked to any of them since.
There have been people online, I'm sure you've seen, that have thought there was something more to your relationship with Chad.
Mm-hmm.
Was there anything more than just a professional relationship and a friendship over the years?
It was always professional until October of 18, when he, as far as I'm concerned, tried to groom me, just like he did Lori.
Tried to groom you, you said?
Yes. And my husband's aware of it. In fact, it was about a year and a half, I look back, when my husband started saying, "Are you sure you can trust Chad?" And I'd go, "Yeah, I can trust Chad." I'd had so many spiritual experiences with him related to the books.
Wow.
That I did trust him. I always I'd always get this hesitation, and I'd ask questions of the Lord, and I'd say, with certain things, because he was always trying to get me to use my gifts about things I saw in the future. And I'd usually just kind of listen or go, I don't see that. Every once in a while I'd say, "Yeah, I still see the earthquake." He'd try to pin a date down on it, and I'd go, "It could be this spring, but
One of the interesting things another author told me the other day is that she had a near-death experience. She said Chad never talked about his with her. And after we posted that, many people said that maybe they think Chad saw this author getting attention and you getting a lot of attention, that maybe he came up with his own.
I think he's talking about Susanne Freeman, which is the lady I was referencing where he stole his fucking stories from. We were talking about the first thing we watched. To Susanne Freeman, remember he was like, she's a simpleton or whatever. That's the lady who he stole the fucking stories from. I think that's who Nate's talking about.
Near-death experience?
Yeah. No, I know he legitimately had them. They were very quick. They were not extensive like mine or Susanne Freeman's.
There it is.
They were a couple minutes, maybe 5 minutes the most. The one where he, was knocked off the cliff.
Mm-hmm.
I heard firsthand from him and from Tammy. Tammy was there to witness it.
Okay.
And also some of his other family members. And then he had another one where he was attacked from the dark side, and his spirit left his body and floated up in their house in Rexburg. And all of his kids were there and his wife, and they kind of had to bring him back. And he called me the day after it happened, and he was very emotional.
What does she think about the
kind of
Rowe
did a session for him to help work through that trauma. And the next time I went to Rexburg, I was at their house with Chad and Tammy sitting on the couch, again, affectionate. He had his arm around her leg, arm around her, holding hands the whole time. And the kids, at least four of their 5 kids were there talking about it. And they were like, "It was so crazy. He was just out and we thought he was dead."
Okay, so you had heard him. You don't think he made him up?
I know he didn't make them up.
Do you think he's been deceived?
I know he's been deceived.
And Lori as well?
Yes. And I was told very clearly from the very beginning, basically to have nothing to do with Lori, Zalema, Melanie, and Melanie. They tried to contact me a couple different times, tried to get my phone number. I was just told, again, because I did see some stuff, and I do have the gift of looking into the past if they show it to me, not everything. And I just saw convoluted, messy energy. I was told that there was abuse energy for all of them. I just was like, and I don't give my phone number out. I deal with security issues since 2014. Very careful with who I let have access to me. And
yeah, why do you have security?
Since going public with my story, I've just had death threats and a lot of security issues. Creepy men. Again, I've called the cabal out, and they've threatened me 3 or 4 times. So,
are you worried for your life?
No.
No.
I used to be. Well, I say it last night when I was under attack and I felt like they were going to kill me. I cried to my security on the phone who was helping me through it, and I said, "I don't want to die." And then this peace came over me, and it was, "You're not going to die. We've already told you you're not going to die."
Mm-hmm.
I'm not worried. Chad has gone around, and some of the sources that have talked to me have told me that he went around at least from January of 2019 telling people that I had gone dark. Right around the time that I called him out on Lori and his communications with others, and on his patriarchal energy, and how he had been treating me, and how I felt used by him and all that, and how I wasn't okay with some of the things he was involved in. And that's when he cut me off. That's the real reason we had a falling out, is I called him out on it. and he didn't like it. And I have proof of that. I've got it in text conversation I've actually sent to Justin Lum. So, and I was told
Let me see that
specifically by
celebrate
my
report, right? I'll
angels to
believe it.
document that and save it for my records. Chad has no idea.
He might now.
He does now.
Yeah.
He's listened. So, and that's about the time I know for sure he went around telling people I was dark when he was sending those lists to Lori saying Charles was dark and all that. So then I'm like, okay, well, so am I next on the hit list? Maybe.
There were a lot of people, that were worried.
Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about energy healing. Some have said that it's dangerous.
Yeah, some people say multiple probations is dangerous, and it's not. What's dangerous is when people misuse their spiritual gifts, and when they can't tell the difference between what a true doctrine is and a false doctrine, or they mix it. The true doctrine of multiple probations is a pure doctrine of light. But when you have unclean spirits or demons who are whispering things.
She said for the first 20 minutes of this thing that the light in the dark and the being deceiving and the false things and all that. I mean, dude. Okay.
To people, and they have their own lust energy, vain ambition, pride or arrogance or ego or other and jealousy energies, an impure heart. They get convoluted with that energy, and then they twist and turn the doctrine. The actual pure doctrine is light. So reincarnation is a false doctrine because there's a counterfeit. There's counterfeits to the multiple probations, and one of the most disgusting energies I've seen is what Chad did with the knowledge he'd been given. He was given this much knowledge, and he tried to make it into this much knowledge, and most of this is gross.
So you do these energy conferences, energy healing conferences, and people come and you're able to, spend hours. You teach them. What is it?
So I do different types of energy. You can do craniosacral. You can, massage therapists do energy work. Physical therapists do energy work. When you listen to uplifting music, you're giving yourself an energy session. If people listen to my podcast, they're designed to help people clear energy. When I talk on the phone, I can see the energy of the system. I can tell if they have health issues, mental illness, porn addictions, drug addictions. I can both hear it or see it based on the gifts I have. Most people don't have the same gifts, but that's how I do it. And I do more of a talk through, I don't tell people's future because I think that crosses boundaries. And again, the future is fluid based on agency, but there are certain things that are kind of set that we agree to primordially that will happen at some time if we stay on our path. But the way they describe it to me is there's plan A, B, C, D, E, and F based on agency, And if anybody's ever studied the Mandela effect, people can look into Mandela effect when it comes to agency, things like that. So with the energy work, if I were to give you a session and you're on the phone, because most of my clients are out of state or out of the country, I would be on the phone in my car or my house or wherever. And then you give me permission to connect to your energy and to see what I need to see or hear. And then I would ask you questions. I would basically say, okay, what would you like to work on today? And spirit to spirit, you might tell me, you might not want to say it out loud, but I generally try to get the client to bring it to consciousness. It clears energy faster. And then we might talk through, the abuse you had when you were 6, or marriage situation you're going through, or, the porn problem or whatever it might be, to bring the energy to the surface of consciousness. And then we would actively work. And I would say, okay, listen, these are the energies that are coming up, the trapped emotions. And we start addressing things on an emotional level. So the same thing when people go to counseling, it's just that they're going to different type of schooling. So when I'm talking to them, I'm kind of like a counselor. That's kind of,
I see. That makes sense. So this is your job. This is your profession.
Experience.
I see. So
he did.
Are you giving God's will to them through you?
No, I don't do that. I don't know what other energy workers do. But I fought for agency primordially. I fight for it every day. And there are certain boundaries that are established by the Lord that you just don't cross when, in terms of agency. So just because I see it,
Just for the people that say, if she is the visionary, why does she charge money?
Just like a counselor does.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, there are different types of energy workers, and the occult does abscond this. The occult version of light work or light energy work is witchcraft, warlords, Wiccans. That's the dark version of energy work. There's a light version to everything and a dark version. And there is a gray area because some people, again, misuse that power, misuse their gifts, or they're deceived. But the way I liken it, because I said this, to Nate Sunderland when I was talking about how I want to do this interview, I said, here's the thing. Some people have said this is dangerous doctrine with multiple patients. Energy work is dangerous. So do we throw the baby out with the bathwater? If I know the gospel is true, and I believe, for instance, that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints has some of the keys of restoration, but I also know that there are stake presidents and bishops, or even members of the 70s, who are involved in satanic ritual abuse or other forms of assault, rape, or molestation. Do I just not go to church anymore? Do I just not go talk to my bishop or my stake president? Do I just say I want nothing to do with any of that because this is corrupt in this form? You see what I'm saying? And I say no to that. And I've been excommunicated for teaching and doing the energy work and doing my podcasts and my books because they do not like the work I'm doing. But I also know there's a higher purpose in why I was excommunicated that I saw and was told in my near-death experience and my vision. So I'm at peace with it, even though I don't like how it was. But you don't just throw the baby out with the bathwater and say it's all bad. Anytime I hear someone say that's dangerous, there's fear energy at the core, and you have to get to the root emotion of why the fear energy is there. What was the trauma that happened to them that created the fear energy so that they just don't want anything to do with whatever that is? You know what I'm saying?
Well, and there's a lot of people that look at Chad and Lori
and
think, I don't want anything to do with what that is, as you just said.
And I agree, I don't either.
Yeah, but they might lump you in with them,
and
or
they
other
are
people associated with this type of preppers, conferences, events, things like that, where wouldn't it just be best to just,
avoid the whole thing?
Yeah, avoid the whole thing. Yeah. Go to church on Sunday,
Yeah.
do your personal study at home. If you have these visions and spiritual prophecies, keep them to yourself and your family, or you end up with 2 missing kids, dead spouse, dead brother.
Right. Okay, the contrast to that is that's what some people really should and could do, because that's maybe what they're ready for. Maybe that's what they agreed to primordially, what they are wanting in their spiritual progression. But there are others so we have the plan of salvation, we have the plan of exaltation. And why anybody would need to know, for instance, about their past lives, I can't answer that for them. I just know I've had memories of it my whole life. I had 6 NDEs. Every time I come back, they say, okay, this is part of your mission to testify of this truth. I cannot deny it. I have the emotions that go with it. I have the visuals that go with it. I have been shown over and over again. And in order for me to clear my own energy, I sometimes have to acknowledge that I went through a trauma 600 years ago in another past life before the pain in my gut will go away. And people have all this energy manifesting. If you have spiritual pain, mental pain, emotional pain, it will often manifest as physical pain in the body. And if you are having physical symptoms, that's your first clue you have energy that needs to be cleared. Something in your energy field that's distorted, whether it's a miasm that's been passed down through the family line or something else. And so when somebody says dangerous anything, you have to get what's the root cause. Well, the adversary uses fear to keep us from progressing. He did it primordially, he does it now. And so some people want to just avoid it, and that's okay. That's a good coping strategy a lot of the time. We kind of come in and out of that, and even in the grief process to waking up. But it was Lucifer in the garden who said, I see your eyes are not yet opened. And so waking up, opening our eyes is a very painful process.
I mean, it always comes
when we
back
open
to
up to
Lucifer,
truth.
doesn't it?
We have to acknowledge that we've been betrayed on this planet. We have to acknowledge that we're living in a matrix. We have to acknowledge that there are lies and false beliefs and post-hypnotic suggestions everywhere we go. And until we can admit to ourselves, and I would say even out loud to other people, that we don't know everything and that there is more for us to learn, and we can push through the fear and say, even if it hurts, I will get to the root cause of why I feel abandonment, why I feel betrayed, why I feel angry, why I feel hurtful, why I feel discouraged, why I feel despair, why I feel depressed, why I have abuse energy. You said you have to get, and that's what I do for my clients is let's get to the core.
I mean,
right?
There's some overlap here with the mirror exercise, right, guys?
Did this start when you were 3? Did this start in premortal world? And for a lot of us, I would actually say anybody that's on the planet, we carry spiritual baggage from a very, very real premortal war that is still going on around us in multiple dimensions in spirit realm. When not just when we entered into the fall with Lucifer, but when there were the Elohim wars and Lucifer fell, as did many of the others that are on his council that were all members of Elohim that turned dark.
Elohim.
And just by me saying that, it will trigger people emotionally, and we will have people sobbing, having no idea what I just said and why
Well, I agree that nobody has any idea what you just said.
Said it. And then it will start to surface. They will start to wake up. They will start to deal with the pain in their heart that they brought with them to the earth.
No idea.
That then attracted other energy, because that energy, every emotion is at a vibration, and it attracts that same vibration. So if you come to the earth with betrayal and you find yourself in a relationship like again
Lucifer,
with family members or coworkers or spouses or whatever, and you're like, why do I always end up in abusive relationships? How come I was cheated on 3 times? Like, why are these patterns following me?
Elohim.
And then that gets into patterns. Something else that's been discussed is patterns, and what patterns are of the light, of the Lord versus not. And I would just say that Melanie's description of the patterns is partially complete. There are more patterns that she's not aware of.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
So there is truth in what she said, but it's incomplete truth.
Do you miss your membership in the church?
Yes,
Wow.
kind of. I am.
When were you excommunicated?
April 9th of 2019.
2019, so a year ago.
Mm-hmm. A little over a year ago. Yeah. It still hurts. I love the Lord with all of my heart. I love Father. I love Mother. I love my family name. I will do anything for them. I know that I was called premortally to do this work, that I'm still being called to do it, and that I accepted, and that it comes at cost. I also know that in the book of Isaiah, it prophesies of the last days, the book of Revelation.
Harder, guys.
2nd and 3rd Nephi, and the book of Mormon, book of Joel, of where we are in
Oh my God.
the last days prior to the Lord's return. And I witness and testify that he is coming in my lifetime. I don't know when. And that I am just supposed to help prepare the way for that. And to prepare my family.
Jeff, isn't your
And it's very painful what the church has done to me and my family. It is, and I've been through some hard things, but it is the most painful thing I have ever been through and am going through.
Do you still go?
Huh?
Do you still go to meetings?
Well, no, they got COVID.
Well, you're right.
No, I have home
Pre-March.
church with my family every Sunday.
You still still
Yes.
read the scriptures? Do you still
Yes.
believe the Book of Mormon?
Yes.
And do you believe the 12 apostles and the first presidency?
I know that we've been infiltrated. I know that
Infiltrated meaning some?
yes. Mhm.
You believe some of the leadership of the church?
Yes. Mhm. I know that the Lord is still working to guide them. And I see us going into apostasy in the church. I see the church going into apostasy. This is what pains me this is what pains me the most. They can excommunicate me, but it pains me to see them aligning with global elites in the UN. It pains me to see that they're teaching some false doctrines. But again, it's all been prophesied. It's all been planned for.
Oh,
I saw this, almost 16 years ago. It was spelled out to me. I saw it very clearly. I've seen it
a lot of gifts, guys. Oh my God, another amazing pause. How does that keep happening?
over and over and over in day and night vision to prepare me and hopefully to help prepare other people that this is what's happening. And this is why, in part, we will have the tribulations and why there is and will be a cleansing and a sifting. So I see the bigger picture, at least some of it, not all of it, right? Pieces of it, but enough to give context and to still have hope. That is why I named my first book A Greater Tomorrow, because we have amazing days on this planet. My message is not doomsday, far from it. My message is we're going to go through some really hard times, harder than we've ever had on this planet. But when we rise above it and we get through it, this planet is going to be gorgeous. It's going to be so light and so bright and so glorious that people can't even imagine.
I still just wish she could fix that thing on her hair there.
And they've given me the conscious of that energy. And it's the same with my excommunication, right? That degree of betrayal, I get the opposite of that in the light, the comfort from the spirit and the calm and the level of peace in my heart. They can falsely accuse me all day long, whether it's the church or people online or people I've met or whatever, right? That betrayal, I'm pretty used to betrayal energy now. But when they affect
she's been getting death threats since 2014.
The people that I love, which are my friends and family on both sides of the veil, that are being lied to, that are being manipulated or coerced or controlled or abused in any form of fashion, no matter what the institution or organization is on either side of the veil in any dimension. That is when war is declared in my heart. And the best way the light side combats the enemy is to spread love and light. And the Lord continues to tell me that my greatest weapon is my heart. And as much as Lucifer wants to try to turn my heart dark by people like Chad Daybell, I refuse to let it happen. Because the Lord continues to give me peace and tell me that my heart is my greatest weapon. And what that means is when I love and I continue to serve and give, then I can help fulfill part of my mission and my promises to my brothers and sisters that I made eons ago, which is to open and heal the hearts of the children of men. That is my mission. I'm supposed to warn and testify and all that, right? Do the energy work. But it really at the core is to help open and heal the hearts of the children of men so that people, as we go into the dispensation of the gathering of Israel, people can have their hearts opened and softened to be receptive to the Lord's gospel so they can go into the light,
having babies?
Whatever degree that is, so that when I see Charles, and hopefully he's listening, he can know it's going to be okay. Have faith. The truth is going to come out about how you died. The truth is going to come out about what you did to try to help Lori. The truth is also going to come out about how he mistreated her sometimes. And if he can push through his fear on that, then he'll move more into the light, right? And if Lori and Chad can humble themselves and look at where they went wrong or where they are going wrong and how they can correct their own energy, and hopefully then that has a ripple effect. And it really starts at the heart. And that's no different for Alex, right? If he is guilty of murder, well, we know he has killed someone and that's got grievous consequences. But even those who murder or commit suicide, there is hope. It is not over. There is still repentance. Does that make sense? And that's a false doctrine that's been taught. That, if you commit suicide or you murder, you're just damned forever. That's a lie. Lucifer would like you to think that because those are some of the the guys he recruits the most. He gets them to the other side of the veil, and they pounce and they shame, and then they're like, it's over for you, man. Christ will never accept you. You're never going to be able to go to the light, let alone the celestial kingdom. So you might as well serve us. You can rise in our ranks. And it's a load of crap. It's just not true.
What do you say to Chad?
I say, I love you, Chad, and I'm really, really sorry. I never want to hurt anyone.
I think she knows that it was murder.
Just by speaking out in the last several months, it hurts people. But he's hurt a lot of people, and I hope that he will hear me, that I'm not doing this from a place of vindictiveness.
Right.
And Tammy has asked me to try to wake him up, has asked me to speak the truth. The Lord has asked me. I want him to know that he has betrayed Tammy.
Remember, she has her gifts, quote unquote, of visions, but remember, she also learns things from the news and then incorporates them. And at this point, what did it say? It was 4 days before the kids were found. I think that people knew that the kids were not alive by then. I mean, it'd been like what, 6 months, 8 months or something. And then of course you have Tammy and Charles and Alex being dead. So I think that, you know, even without all of the gifts, quote unquote, that she has, I think it's pretty clear there's some murderous behavior going on.
Terribly, whether he thinks she came to him or not and told him to marry Lori. That was a false spirit. He is deceived. He has been deceived. If he can clear out his own impure heart energy and humble himself and get back to at least some of the man that I believe I met in 2014 that was more humble. I don't see humility now. I see, like I said, a hard heart, walls. There's more I see about curse energy and some attacks that have been very physical that have come directly from Lori and Chad as a result of me speaking out. And I want him to know that I'm aware of those and that the only way I've been able to clear that when I have been physically attacked and had visuals of him involved with some of those in Lucifer's council. The only way it's cleared is when I have acknowledged to those practitioners who are helping me through that, and I've actually said out loud, I see Chad Daybell wearing this. I see Chad Daybell doing this. And then the energy will clear from my system.
I literally expected her to say an orange jumpsuit when she said, I see Chad Daybell wearing, and then I was like, an orange jumpsuit, and then she said this. I was like, oh.
The attack will stop. And Chad knows what I'm talking about. And whether it was a conscious thing he did or not, some of it has been conscious and some of it's been in spirit realm that he might not be fully conscious of in this body. But at the root of it, repentance, acknowledging selfishness, acknowledging lust energy, acknowledging that he's been deceived, acknowledging that he is hurt and is hurting his children, acknowledging
I agree, Chad. I agree, Chad. I agree with that.
And that he is not the Davidic servant.
I mean, she had a huge influence on Chad and Lori and their whole group.
He and Lori are not the Davidic couple or in the Davidic presidency. They never have been and they never will be. They have been deceived and used by Lucifer to further Lucifer's plans. And he does not have a mission or a role working with the 144,000.
No, it's because I read Chad. Chad is in the thing, and I was reading it as I was talking. But yes, Heather, ha ha, ha ha.
They are not translated. They are not on track for that. What they are on track for right now, unless they repent and stop what they've done and correct the energy, is a path of continued destruction. and it's not too late for them or anybody else.
That's exactly why they are in custody, so they cannot continue the path of destruction.
Within the sound of my voice to see the light.
Julie Rowe, thank you.
I just want to say a few things.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Thank you for your time. Thank you for listening.
You did listen. It wasn't easy.
I appreciate the work of those working on behalf of the light side, wherever they are.
Oh, gosh.
For the light warriors, for the ministering angels and the guardian angels who literally put their bodies on the line every day for those of us in mortality. I love all of you. I love our family. And when I mean the family, I mean the entire human family, wherever they are, because we have a lot of worlds involved, right? This is a big universe. And we are in the winding up scenes in the last days, and Christ will come.
So they had a whole bunch of other people, though, on their list of dark that, I mean, there's no telling. If, like, going off of what their own pattern, right? It's like if you're dark and you're a zombie, right? You know, there was other people. There was other people.
And he'll do it in my life.
Good night, Thanos.
I am
Have fun on
48
your work trip
in January. And I just love people.
Thanos.
And I will expose darkness at all cost. If people think I'm crazy, that's okay. But I would ask that they would take anything I have said or anything I will say or anything I've written and just ask the Lord. Don't take my word for it. Take it to the Lord and ask him. And if it's making them uncomfortable or if it's hurting them, get to that root core emotion of why they feel that way.
Mirror exercise.
Why they're not ready to hear it. And then instead of just outright rejecting, just put it on a shelf. And you can keep it on the shelf for 100 years. And when you're ready to bring it down and address it again, do it. There's no rush. This is an eternal plan with an infinite atonement. And I respect agency, and I just hope that we can show more love and kindness to the people that are around us, wherever they may be. Sending my love out to everybody.
Thank you, Julie.
I'm all good without her love. So I just wanted to show you guys this. So so this is the Julie Rowe show. There is still the Julie Rowe podcast. It's like on Apple Podcasts or whatever, but I think this is like the same thing. So the most recent one is from 5 years ago, but there's 91 of these guys. I mean, like, we've got Raise Your Energy, Multiple Appropriations 4, Multiple Appropriations 3, Sending Love, Announcement. Look at that face. Look at that face. Perfect Love. I mean, it just goes on and on. Royal Bloodlines. That looks interesting. I saw one on here. Where was it? Something about Jesus. Where was it? The Hidden Bloodline of Christ. I mean, so anywho, so this could be a whole thing. We could just watch all of these one by one. But we will save that. We will save that for the next one. So we'll do more of this tomorrow as we continue on. We've got so much more to get through of Lori's Inner Circle. And now we can add this into the mix. So that'll be the plan for tomorrow, prior to the closing arguments for Lori's trial. Again, tomorrow night will be our members only live stream for the trivia night. That will be after the verdict. Assuming we have a verdict tomorrow, but anywho. So, and then of course on Tuesday we have Karen Reed opening statements. Dude. So, very, very interesting stuff. I'm just trying to find got some glorious, the pauses were really special with her, everyone was great. So, oh, that's true, Heather. Well, there you go. So it's all good. As long as you don't go dark, right? Yeah, that's a good point as well, Jeff. Yeah, LDS is like a whole thing. Don't go to bed yet. If you're talking to me, I'm not going to bed. Duh. I thought weren't you half asleep, Meg? Were you napetizering? But I'm really behind on timestamps, so there is that. Yeah, Jeff, from what I've been told, people have said this in the chat that your wife is a member or something, right? Why? What? Tell me why. Okay, so that was accurate. Jeff's wife is a member. There we go. Look at her. Yeah. Very interesting there. And that's different from going to the temple, right, Jeff? The temple's separate from what I understand. There is an LDS church actually kind of near me. I thought about going just for fun to be like, kind of like a spy, situation. But yeah, I never got around to it. Temple is separate. Yeah. So anywho, guys, that'll be it for this one, but we will continue on tomorrow. I need to just set up those streams. Very expensive building. Interesting. Are you talking about my bear? I love that bear. Shout out to the bear. Hope the bear is living its best bear life. So yeah, I gotta set up those live streams, but I have the trivia all done, so that's good. I think that's already set up actually. What is Psychiana? What? Speaking of online sermons, Church of the Union has all that. You guys already know that. I do think. Are you guys want more Julie Rowe? Is that what y'all want? You guys aren't done with the Julie Rowe for now? Doug Wilson. Right. He's like related to the Christ Church. I don't even know. Yeah, I've seen the name come up before. And I think that's what that is. Christ Church. Hi, Piglet. There's Frodo. Tell me why. All right. Do y'all want one more Julie Rowe video? Is that what I'm Psychiana? Is it a church? I don't know. I have no idea. Frankie Figs has, not that she's here right now, but I just know that she's been deep diving them for like hardcore. I think that's why we haven't seen her. She's like she's the person for that. She's really good at finding out stuff. So she did message me and said she watched the documentary and she's been deep diving them ever since. So Twin Flame show. Wait, I'm getting conflicting messages here. Twin Flames, show us more Lori, don't leave us. Let me see here. I mean, I've got like the phone calls with Lori and Chad. I mean, are you saying like Lori related stuff or like Lori actually? Because I think we've watched all the things with Lori in them. You're wonderful. I don't know if I can find that so easily. You want to see? Okay, so let me see. How did I share this link to myself last time? Let me see. Just waiting for Discord to open. Tell me why. Okay. Give me just a second.
Growing up in Southern California, one of the things I always wanted to see was the Playboy Mansion.
Okay, hang on. Wait, I can't do it that way because, hold on, I need to open this in Chrome. Do, 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 do. Okay, hold on. New window, new window, new window. Do, 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 do.
As well, but let's go walk over. Follow me into the 2-bedroom guest house, and we're gonna go check that out. Let's go take a look. Whoa! Almost fell in the pool. Did you see that? I was joking about at the end of the tour us jumping off of there all together, and I
Funny how there's the overlap with Chad's cliff dive.
almost fell in the pool myself.
So we're gonna skip past like the intro thing. Look at that. Look at that, though. The castle. I want to live in the castle.
Welcome to the famous
I want to live in the guest house.
Castle House in the richest city in Dallas, Texas. This amazing custom-designed gated estate features 7 bedrooms, 12 bathrooms, almost 14,000 square feet on over 1.5 acres of land.
The best part right there.
Yes, I was so enthralled with the Playboy Mansion-style grotto that I almost fell in the pool. But you are going to absolutely love both the inside and outside of this spectacular estate, which has many features that you have probably never seen before. So be sure to watch the entire tour. Let's go inside this spectacular property that's fit for royalty.
I mean, it's crazy, huh? They've even got the complimentary fruit. Wow.
So Sandra, how cool is this? We reconnected after 30 years, and now we're touring your
That's
house.
the homeowner. Well, we don't care about that. We want to get to the pool. I wonder what she does for a living. There's the grand piano. Actually, it's a baby grand, just not a real grand, a baby grand. Also, he like fractured his finger or something. It looks like. What is this thing? Hold on, we didn't watch this part yesterday.
Let's go ahead and take a look at the first floor. All right, if you're enjoying this Castle House tour, I want you to subscribe to the channel. All right, I'm really digging the
Jeff would like that.
elephant here. I think this guy's really cool. And as you walk right past the elephant, you get to our dining room, which has seating for 10 people. Also looks out over the front and the moat, which, as you know, is one of my favorite things. But then I'm going to show you one of my really favorite things in this house, and that is our walk-in wine cellar. Let's go take a look.
Yeah, Happy Annie, glad you did not watch it around the Ooh, a walk-in wine cellar.
Right off the dining room, you have your step-down wine cellar with panels of glass that you could see right from the dining room again. And then this area
Do they have a Chateau Nifty-Pop? Wow, it's pretty barren, isn't it? Though?
is nice and cool for your wine. It also has an amazing ceiling that looks like gold-plated old
acoustics in this place are insane.
Old world castle theme again all throughout the house. And as a lover of wine, this is definitely a feature of the house that caught
there's Grey Goose. That's my favorite vodka. There's Grey Goose.
my eye immediately, and I think it is such a cool place in here. All right, so recurring theme in the house is these custom ceilings in a
Oh, interesting. Somebody celebrates Hanukkah, looks like there.
lot of the rooms. Here we have, again, a gold-plated ceiling and a custom iron chandelier, which really highlights the dining room and, again, really pulls us together with the castle theme. Now, off the dining room, let's go ahead and check out the kitchen, which is also amazing. Let's go take a look. All right, so here in the kitchen we have,
Are you saying not as funny as what we watched? What are you saying now? Okay, so let's jump. Okay, let's see if they go to the
wherever you are on this first floor, you're always seeing and hearing the sounds of the waterfall, the pool. You got the water, it's calm, the ambiance is amazing, and this is really a comfortable room, nice place to watch TV, hang out, and really have a good time. All right, so on the first floor, off this main area, we're gonna head on into the master bedroom. Now,
what is that to his left? The fuck is that?
you guys, one thing I wanna mention is when we first moved to
Oh, Netflix isn't as funny. I gotcha. I see what you're saying. Right. I see what you're saying. Yeah, I mean, the original documentary thing that we watched was not as funny. I mean, the parts that are funny are the clips of them too, right? Jeff and Shalia, but the stories of the people that got out are obviously harrowing.
to Texas, one of the things that was interesting for me was that master bedrooms are on the first floor. In California, they were always on the second floor. And at first I thought, wow, this is so weird. But I got to tell you, it actually is the best thing. Because typically you have the kids upstairs, master bedrooms downstairs. They can't bug you. They're far away.
Weird that this is like weird to him because like that is normal to me. Master bedroom on the first floor is normal to me. Okay, we're going to jump. We want to get to the pool. Oh, wow. Is that the library? Oh, that's a closet. That's a closet? They have ladders? What? When you need ladders to get, what is?
New ceiling with amazing and beautiful dark cabinetry. You may have to use
What?
these ladders to get to anything you put on the top level.
All right, so on the first floor, you also have the office, which has
I just don't even know what to say about that. I thought it was a library. Whoa, what is this? Wow, a theater. Okay, let's get to the pool. Here we go.
Look, growing up in Southern California, one of the things I always wanted to see was the Playboy Mansion Grotto. You can have that right here in Texas. We're going to go check that out as well. But let's go walk over. Follow me into the 2-bedroom guest house, and we're going to go check that out. Let's go take a look. Whoa! Almost fell into the pool. Did you see that?
What is that?
I was joking about at the end of the tour, us jumping off of there all together, and I almost fell in the pool myself. So as you go to the guest house, you got a very cool area here, which has a fireplace and a little hangout area. Great place for us cigar smokers to hang out and drink. As we walk over here, we got the hot tub here. You got another seating area here. We're going to check out.
Now, there's a better angle here in a minute where you can see just how tiny that person on the top is, but it's perfect size for me.
The tennis court and all that good stuff later. You also have an awesome yard over here. But let's go take a look at the guest house. And one of the coolest things I've personally ever seen is the swim up grotto and the underneath area. So let's go check this out. All right, so we are inside the grotto. You got
what we could do is we could watch The Room on Discord. For those of you, I think all of you guys missed it because it was just me, Official, and Spencer who were there last time.
Right there, you swim right up to the swim up bar. You got another hot tub here, a garage door that closes, and the waterfall behind you. In here, you got another seating area. And this, my friends, is also a 2-bedroom guest house. So these details are just unprecedented. And the way that this is set up is just unbelievable. It really is one of the most unique features that I've ever seen in 20 years of real estate and of seeing houses. So spectacular feature. I want you to imagine you're hanging out here, you're having some drinks. You got all your friends swimming up to the...
Sorry, I take it back. Happy Annie was there on and off for the movie. Yeah, right. Literally, that's so funny. At the exact same time. At the exact same time.
Swim up bar, the hot tub's going, you're smoking a cigar, having a drink, barbecue on a Sunday. I mean, there is no better place. And by the way, one thing I will tell you that's amazing is that we are in Texas. And in Texas...
Meg, did you find this video by like searching for houses with big waterfalls? I'm just curious.
It gets really hot in the summertime. Well, I guarantee you right in here in this room, it's going to be a lot cooler because right now it really feels like you're in a cave. It's really an unbelievable environment to hang out in the summertime.
It's a grotto. When you're getting kinky, you can pull down that garage thing. Oh, there's the little baby. Look at that. It's perfect size for me, though.
I'm a sucker for the finer details in a house.
And it has a tiny waterfall.
And you guys check this out. You got the hot tub here. You got a waterfall into a rock pathway that goes all the way into the pool. I just think that that is very, very cool. And now let's go check out
Also really shallow, that hot tub situation.
this area over here with the tennis court for all of you tennis fans. And by the way, as we said earlier, that is how the homeowner and I reconnected, was over tennis with my wife. So I think that is super cool. All right, so over here we have really nice sized yard, and it is Texas. And here in the winter/spring, the grass does get yellow. It is not dead. In fact, when we first moved to Texas, that was one of the things I asked is, why is all the grass dead? And it's not dead. It's just that it's that time of year. It all comes back. And
where did you live before without grass? Anyway. I mean, facts. Even that quarter hot tub has better waterfall than Twin Flake. Yep, it certainly does. It certainly does. What do you guys think though about moving over to Discord for the movie night with the room? You guys will thank me, I promise. While you're thinking about it. While you're thinking about it. Let's see here. Let's just do. I have to just do this one because the face is so insane. Just do this one.
Hi, welcome to the Julie Rowe Show. Hi, Eric.
Hey, Julie.
Oh, weird. Okay.
But this isn't a normal podcast today. This is an announcement podcast episode.
This is going to be a great announcement podcast. We have some good news. So do you want to start or should I?
I think you should. You've got the energy that matches the intent. So
the intensity of what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, gosh. Okay.
So that dude is Eric Smith. We've heard his name a bunch of times. He's still doing this stuff. I think they're still operating together. A lot of people have said that really the prior probations or whatever, they attribute to him. A lot of people say. So
first thing, we're going to get business out of the way. We have registration open for my group energy classes.
You know, it's just so fitting, isn't it? She's wearing like cheetah print or something.
Next year.
Wow.
Eric, do we have them all on there or just the first few?
I think they're all listed right through the very last one in Rexburg in next November, I think.
November. Yeah. Okay. So acuity scheduling. We have all of the venues selected so far, except for Bristol, England and Salt Lake City. But we are
Bristol, England?
Everything else has been secured, and I am committed. Unless I have some unforeseen emergency that prevents me from coming, I am planning
like an attack from the demons.
So
Lucifer,
right now,
Lucifer.
We have 20 people signed up for Layton. That's January 25th in Layton, Utah. I can see I think between 100 and 150. So plenty of room, you guys. Go ahead and get signed up now. The sooner the better. That helps me out on my finances.
Cars? I have a lot of questions.
And all the other.
Why are they in their cars?
Anyway, excited about that. And then March 7th is St. George. Then we've got the rest of the venues. You can go look at the blog or at the other announcement to find out, what our layout is for next year for 2020. But coming up next, Layton, Utah, January 25th, and that's Saturday.
Her hair isn't doing well. She's still got a little bit of that, but it's not as bad as the other one.
Same with March 7th is Saturday. All my classes are on Saturdays. Excited to work with you guys. We have some good things coming. I continually learn, and so I'm going to bring more of that knowledge to those classes for 2020. Also talking more about what I see in these classes, because we have some big stuff coming in 2020 and 2021, and I'm going to kind of lay it out in each of those classes. We have different things for the classes where I'll focus some of the energy on those areas, and then I'm going to throw in some other stuff on a global scale or cosmic level.
Just throw a little, just sprinkle a little bit of Lucifer in here, a little Lucifer there,
What else, Eric?
Cool.
You want to announce your book?
Yeah.
Not another book.
Well, I didn't want to do that one first. That's okay.
I do. I'm excited about it.
I wanted to, some of your listeners know I have a blog called Doctrinal Essays where I publish things, doctrinal subjects that I've researched and that I love and I'm passionate about. And in recent years, those have started to go hand in hand with our podcast topics because, you know, we're on the same page in a lot of things. And so I've wanted to have those in a written form for a long time. And we've been self-publishing podcast books in recent months, and I've gained some confidence, and I've had some listeners who've been very helpful and supportive and encouraging in the self-publishing effort. And so that's been awesome. And so I'm going to publish my essays, doctrinal essays. I'll probably have a couple volumes, and we'll do volume 1 here in the next few months. I'm excited about that.
Yeah, just thinner books, basically smaller books that they can take. It'd be great to put in a backpack or something if somebody's on the go, right?
Well, that's exactly it. My whole point in public,
so that you never have to spend a waking moment without whatever their crazy teachings are.
publishing it's not a money-driven effort. It's because I've had other people
like when you say that, it always is, right?
And I really want these.
Why are
these
hard?
Essays preserved in written form when tribulations come? And and one of the big reasons for that is because there's so much
by the way, he's also been excommunicated from the church.
Research and scriptural sources that I myself, when I'm remembering or talking about a topic, I'll often go to my essays because everything's just listed there in the order that I like. And so they could be a source for, you know, public speaking or just, you know, family home evening lessons or something.
Right.
Anyway, so it's almost more for me than anyone else. Thank you. I'm excited.
Well, and I'm excited to give it to him and to get some copies for myself and for some close friends and stuff. So I'm excited about that. Also, okay, so self-publishing, I think we talked about this previously. Eric and I have been working on self-publishing the podcast books. As you know, last spring, I quit publishing my other books. We still have some of the first 4 books out there: A Greater Tomorrow, The Time Is Now, From Tragedy to Destiny, and the biography, Rising Above the Flames. Those are still available for sale on Amazon. I don't know how long those will be available or how many copies we have out there. We've already got them at the distributor. The publisher is finished with our agreement and what we're doing here, and he's moving on to some other things. And so we are self-publishing now. We got a little connection problem. So our publisher for the biography and for the first podcast book, volume 1, the Julie Rowe Show volume 1, is still out there. That was published by Spring Creek Books.
That was Chad's company
book that we're working on, so we'll call it Podcast Book 2, volume 2, is being done by Eric and I, and he's really the one that's taking charge of all this. Eric, thank you so much for all your work. We've had transcriptionists that helped with initial transcriptions, and then Eric's kind of been overseeing the rest of it on the editing and compiling it, putting it into book form and everything. And so he's been doing a great job. Been working really hard on that, and we are ready to announce that it's coming out when, Eric?
On Thanksgiving Day. Yep.
November 28th, 2019, first podcast book.
And that will be available through ebook and paperback. You can buy them together, and there's a discount if you buy them together.
Why would you want book? Okay. Never mind.
Yeah, so that'll come out on Thanksgiving. And
we have some cool covers, and he's done a really great job. So Eric, what's the title of the first book? Do you remember?
What I See.
What I See.
Yep.
Okay, so podcast book number 2.
Is book number 2 What I Hear? It's book number 3 What I Smell. Sorry.
First self-publishing book we're doing is called What I See. And then we have another book coming out, volume 3, that is almost finished. It'll come out sometime in the next month, probably, maybe. We haven't really decided. And maybe a little closer to Christmas. And that is called what?
That's called The Message. And so the titles of these are coming from the overarching theme in a given set of 10 podcasts. So volume 2 is episodes 11 through 20. Volume 3 is 21 through 30, and so on.
Right. Cool. I'd also like to announce I'm excited. I've also been working on a book with another guy. And I'm not going to give you the title of that book, although I have seen it in vision and have been given the title, as has he. I see this book came out during the tribulations, quite frankly, after I'm translated. So I don't know when that is. That's what I know, but I can't come out with it with some of the.
Well, there it is, translated. There it is. Hang on.
I have seen it in vision and have been given the title, as has he. I see this book came out during the tribulations, quite frankly, after I'm translated. So I don't know when that is. That's what I know, but I can't come out with it with some of the intensity, the energy that I put into this next book, and some of the things that I disclose cannot come out until after I'm in a different situation, off grid, and some other things, so that those who are not happy with my work can't hurt me. So that's what I'm
afraid of them, Julie.
I don't know if it's 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, but just sometime, 2/3. I don't even know if it's 2/3 through the tribulations, but it's a transition book to help those that are in transition before we go to New Jerusalem.
And I've read portions of that.
Or as we go.
And I have to say that it's riveting. It's very touching. And very spiritually motivated, no question. It's going to be an amazing book.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
I don't think so myself, even though it's like my own shit. Okay.
I feel a lot of light related to the book. I'm getting a lot of personal
What
revelation.
is false light?
And that's basically what it is. That book is the revelations I've been given, the things I've seen that on a global scale, and past, present, future, some of those things. And so I'm excited about that. I'm not going to disclose any more about what it is, but it will be good. It'll help people transition as we go into New Jerusalem, and I see it being utilized in New Jerusalem in those early days especially. So exciting.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's great.
I want to tell them the cover. I'm not allowed to tell them the cover, but it's a cool cover.
Yeah.
It's a good transition. So, okay. And what else do we have, Eric? We were going to announce.
Yep.
Is that it?
There's one more thing. Yep.
How could I forget? Okay, so Eric is going to help me oversee some other projects. He is awesome. He has some changes coming up in his life, as do I. As you know, with my excommunication in April 9th of this year, 2019, lots of shifting going on in my personal life, and I see some other big shifts coming for me in the next several months. And I don't know exactly when those will come, but I see those. And Eric has some big shifts that have happened in his life, and that will happen in the next, I think, probably sometime in the next 3 to 6 months. So just stay tuned for that. We're not going to disclose what that is. Just stay tuned for more information as we. Well, I don't know if we'll just probably just an announcement on it and do a special podcast related to some of those changes. And with that, Eric has kindly offered to help me on a different level with some social media stuff. I've been asking since 2014 if I needed to do anything on social media, and I got off of Facebook in December of 14 under the direction of the Spirit. I have since been redirected in the last 3 weeks, basically, to do some social media. So if any of you would like to volunteer to help with social media, I am open to possibly having volunteers help Eric on this project. I'm not going to disclose any more of that. If you are interested, go ahead and send us an email at agreatertomorrow2014@gmail.com. It is a volunteer situation. And if you are selected as a volunteer, then we will give you further information.
Julie, can you say anything?
Eric's overseeing that project.
Can you say anything about the motivation for this new social media effort?
Sure. Okay. So right now, most of our audience has been Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I have always seen this message going worldwide, more so to non-members, even non-LDS or non-religious individuals. This is an effort to wake up the world on a grander scale, a bigger scale, and it step out of our comfort zone in so doing. And I'm going to be a lot edgier. I'm going to say some stuff on social media, as well as, in addition to one of the formats we're going to do is with YouTube, and we're going to do some 3 to 5 minute videos, 7 to 12 minute videos, some quick videos on everything from what I see, what I've seen, what's coming, what I currently see, some hot topics in the news that are going on, what I see is really going on, what the backstory is, something like that I get from the Spirit that we're just not getting in mainstream media and even in alternative media. And so this is an opportunity for me to share more of what I see, for Eric to help out with that. He's got some great insights. He's going to basically serve as an interviewer, do some quick, I don't know how much we want to go into detail on that, but it's going to be good. And we want an opportunity for those who don't have 40 minutes to sit down and listen to a podcast, even if they can only do a 3 to 5 minute video or a 7 to 12 minute video. Most people can take 3 to 5 minutes to listen to something, and the goal is to help open eyes and to open hearts, and to help people wake up to what's going on, not only in this country, but on the planet and in the galaxy. So that's my intention. That's Eric's intention.
That's great. That's perfect. I'm really excited for it. It feels inspired. It's been coming organically to both of us and others, and it's just the next thing.
Okay,
it's just got to happen. So I'm really excited where it's going to go. I really feel, Julie, that it's that heaven's saying it's time to get a different, not a different audience, but add to this current audience. And right, just
okay. Here's what we're going to do. Face. All right. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to do movie night in the Discord. So here's what we're going to do. So all you have to do is go here. I don't have a set. It'll just take a second after I end the stream, but go to the Discord and then go to the left where it has the different threads and scroll down where it says Squirrely Watch Party or Squirrely Viewing Party, something like that. Right. And you just click in there, and then we're going to watch my favorite B movie, The Room. And you can opt to have your microphone on, or you can chat in there, or you can do both. So there's and I'll if you guys aren't familiar with it, I'll explain it when we get to that, and I'll just tell you where all the buttons are. And we can watch that. And I think you guys will be, that's just the perfect way to end this entire thing. So Heather's dog is snoring. So hopefully you guys can all come over there. I think y'all are all part of the Discord. And so, yeah. So, okay. But I'm going to go ahead and close this out. I'll see you guys in just a sec. And as for this one, squirrel out.